ready, Chairman.
Okay, so we've gotten through our daily dose of, our bi-weekly dose of technological problems.
If that's it, I'll be very happy.
We'll
Take that in the world, right?
Exactly.
Call the meeting to order here. Welcome everyone to the October 6th, 2021 meeting by the school committee. Would all school committee members that are present please indicate so in roll call. Mrs. Caleri.
Present.
Mr. Dial.
Present.
Mr. Who's next? Tierney.
Present.
Mrs. St. Ange.
Present.
I am present. Craig McClellan. All committee members are present at 6:04 p.m. Before we get going, I just wanted to make a few preliminary comments. As I noted at the last meeting, we are going to start implementing a rule surrounding the number of comments. This is not to restrain anyone. It's simply to try and make the length of these meetings a little bit more manageable. And we'll try it out and see how it works. Hopefully it does. Especially where the meetings are now in person, we feel like people are able to come in person and be heard in person. That also lends itself to a little bit more of an enhanced level of commentary and participation. That said, the rule that we are going to start implementing is that each household will have up to 3 comments per meeting. And I think we'll leave it to everyone's reasonable discretion what a comment is. I think that we all understand that and we can be mature about it and responsible. A comment obviously would be a statement or an inquiry relating to any one topic and a full thought. And any follow-up questions in response to any sort of answers from the school committee, the superintendent, the assistant superintendent would be another comment. We will be trying to keep track of it as best as possible. So, and if you're using the Q&A feature, you're commenting virtually, you're not here in person. Just try and keep it to a manageable word count. We're talking somewhere between somewhere around 150 words or something like that. And if you're here in person, then just try and complete your full thought within a minute or so, and rather than droning on for several minutes, just so we can try and keep the meeting lengths more manageable. And we thank everyone for doing that. We'll see how it goes. And if everyone hates it, and if it's not working out, and it's not really solving any problems, then maybe we'll adjust. That said, also wanted to note at the outset of this meeting that, as everyone knows, this is our sort of reevaluation, 6-week reevaluation of COVID safety measures that we have employed in the school. Dr. Sullivan's going to give a full presentation on that. But at this juncture, the way Jesse has addressed one of the more predominant concerns is masking. We're not going to be able to make any decisions about demasking at this point, affirmative decisions, because we just don't have the information at hand because of the timelines that were set. But Dr. Sullivan will go into more detail about that. You'll see where we're at, and I think it'll give everyone at least a good idea of where the district may be headed. But I don't think any affirmative decisions will be made until the next meeting, which would be on October 20th. So with that said, we'll move to public comment, which is reserved for comments or inquiries related to something that is not already on the agenda. So if you have something like that to add to the meeting, please do so now. Give everyone a few moments to use the Q&A feature to do that, or those of you that are present in the audience, we do have a few people here today. We'll call on them.
That's nice to see people again.
It's great. It's great. That's why we were late. Dr. Sullivan and I were actually interacting with families at the school committee meetings once again, so it was great.
Good.
Okay, I'm being informed that there are no public comments being made, and I don't see any hands being raised here, so we're going to move on to the next agenda item, which, as always, is our superintendent's report. So I would turn the meeting over to our superintendent of schools, Dr. Patrick Sullivan. Dr. Sullivan.
Thank you very much, Chair McClellan. It is nice to be here to talk about our safety and what we put into place in the fall, reviewing all measures that we put into place, and to follow along with what we've done throughout the whole pandemic, where we talk about what we're going to put in place, we collect data, we put something in place, and then we come back at about a 6-week period, which is a good amount of time to really make adjustments. And then we look and we see if we need to make adjustments. Before I dive into that, though, I wanted to give a couple of updates, and we do have some important guests I want to introduce you to. who will be helping us as student liaisons for the future meetings. But both Dr. Scollins and I have quick updates. The first thing I want to update on, and I'm going to share my screen to show you some images of school committee. I'm not sure what you'll be able to see in terms of the screen here, but you do have this in front of you. Yesterday, I was able to attend the grand opening of our METCO headquarters. As folks in Cohasset know, we are proudly a METCO district, have been since 1968, where we have, I believe, 46 METCO students. However, I like to say we have just under 1,500 METCO students because really all of our students are impacted in a positive way by having this program be part of our community. This was an incredibly inspiring day for me, and I think for everyone who attended. The new METCO home their headquarters is in Nubian Square, which is in Roxbury. And the pride that went into this was really apparent, and you could see really where the METCO program came from, and you get a good glimpse about where it's going to, where it's moving, just by being in the building. So you can see, or you can see it right here, this is sort of the invitation to it, and you can see a couple of features that I'm going to get into, but I happen to be there kind of early, so I was able to take some photos. I love this. This is a mural that was created by the students, and it's all about students. So it's the first thing you see as you walk into the Nubian Square headquarters. Then you walk into a foyer, and it tells the whole story of METCO, where it started. And for those of you who don't know, one of the grassroots organizations called the Exodus Project is really at the foundation of METCO. It happened in 1965 when some, at the time, African-American families felt that the schools that they were having their children go to in Boston were very underfunded and they were very substandard, found loopholes in the language, and decided on their own to create kind of a, sort of duct tape and spit enterprise where they were trying to put together a bus to bring students to certain schools throughout the city where they could participate based on the loophole. And they felt, and rightfully so, that what their kids were experiencing was just not fair, just not equitable. From that grew some formal legislation. And you can see just moving through the room, the evolution of METCO and the real spirit behind it. So it's nice to see that just as you walk into the main room. There were some dignitaries on hand and some folks here who you'd recognize. You have Ms. McGuire, I know her first name is Jean. She was one of the founders of METCO, the first president of METCO, is right at center in the middle. Millie Abergé Thomas is the woman in the floral dress, kind of to the left of the picture if you're looking at your screen. And then, of course, you might recognize Secretary Kaiser, who the educational secretary was there. And then the woman who has her arm around Millie Abergé Thomas is a senator representing Suffolk, I know. And then if you look further down the line, there's some superintendents, and you'll see our own Elisa Gittins-Carl, who was there. And Elisa did a tremendous job with the prayer. It was beautifully written, as everything that Elisa writes and speaks is so beautifully done that I've seen. This was no exception. So it was really, it was a very proud moment for me to see someone who's represented Cohasset METCO students and really all of Cohasset students for 21 years here in Cohasset, deliver that fantastic prayer. This is just some, I think that's the back of my head, I'm not sure. This is just kind of the celebration as Millie was going around and looking at the kind of the timeline of METCO, if you will. And there's the ribbon cutting. I am waving that there. But this is the ribbon cutting, which is a nice moment for this beautiful new building. You can see Millie addressing. And I love the few things she said. She said that what she's really focused on right now is, she calls it the 3 I's, inspiring people, working with intentionality. And we talk about that a lot in Cohasset Public Schools, where we've been doing things, but maybe not with the intentionality that we need to in some places. And that's where a strategic plan comes in. And so it's inspire, work with intentionality, and then insist upon change. And I love that message. I think it fits a lot of settings and certainly fits the METCO philosophy. These are the districts. There have been 30 districts or so who have taken part in the METCO program. You can see the originals were in 66 and 7, and then we come in there, you can see in 68. This is a beautiful conference room. One of a challenge to our team is I think we may want to have a meeting there. I think it would be a wonderful show of support, that this is a big part of our community. It's certainly a place that could do exactly what we're doing here there. So it's just something for us to think of, potentially in the summer, and potentially having some students there too. I think it would be very nice, just a thought for us. And this was on the wall. I just thought it said a lot about really their mission. The way they go about it. That's Lisa and I in front of a METCO banner. I love the banner. And then really this is what it's all about. These pictures were up there. They were up in the actual headquarters. So it was nice to see. This was from our ice cream social, and that was one of my favorite moments of the summer. I've mentioned it several times. And this is what we do it for, right? We do it for the kids, not just the students who are Boston residents, but the students who are Boston residents. So I just wanted to share that as sort of a start to the meeting, because I thought it was wonderful. So anyway, do you have any thoughts or questions on that? Or not, I'll move to Dr. Scollins has a brief update.
I think we should definitely have a meeting there. I agree.
Yeah, it's a lovely.
During the school year would be better.
I think so too. Let's take a field trip.
Whenever you'd like to do it.
Yeah, we'll talk about when it's, we're still trying to get all the, because the goal is to actually jump from building to building within the district. So,
It is, yeah.
once we have that down, I think then why can't we just go to Boston and do one there? I think that's a wonderful idea.
That's great.
Really nice idea. Yeah.
Really good to hear that. And I want to thank Elisa for her leadership and for being a major part of this. So it was great to see. A couple of things just before I turn it over to Dr. Scollins for her update is we have a few educational celebrations. This month, October, is National Principal Month.
Oh.
So I was able to sort of acknowledge them on Twitter, and our principals, Principal Scott, Principal Mills, Principal Sullivan, Farrell, are wonderful leaders and really are the backbone of everything we do here. So it's I'm very honored to have them on the team. And then it was also October 2nd was Custodian Appreciation Day. And certainly no one does more than our custodians behind the scenes to keep everything moving. So, just publicly, I want to thank our custodians for all they do. And they fall under the supervision of Susan. So, thank you for your team and everything they do. And then there's another awareness, not a teacher celebration necessarily, but let Dr. Scollins kind of lead into your update.
Yeah, it's a good lead in. So October is Dyslexia Awareness Month. So I thought I'd just give you a quick synopsis of some of the things that we're doing around dyslexia. And so over the past couple of years, we have been working together as a team to look at dyslexia. The laws and regulations came out and new information. So we have been working as a team to look at how we are screening for dyslexia. And out of that work, we came up with a process and protocol, and then also using the Shayowitz assessment for dyslexia. And with that came training for our staff, which we did in the beginning of the year. They had a 90-minute training on not just the screener, but also dyslexia. So really got into some of the pieces around what you look for in dyslexia and what dyslexia is. On top of that, we had also put in foundations before I got here for our K through 3, and we are continuing that work with foundations along with our partnership with Teaching Learning Alliance, and we started our work with them last year, and they are working with us to create a comprehensive literacy approach for our elementary students. And one of the things they will be doing is training in foundations. So we want to make sure that everyone has the same trainings in the sense of new teachers who have come on board, who didn't get the original training, make sure that they get training. Those that have already had some training, let's approach what they need. And then we've moved it up to 4th and 5th grade around looking at really specifically syllables and how you break down words. So they're going to work with us on that. Plus, the really big piece around TLA is their embedded coaching approach for our teachers. So they will actually be in classrooms in real time coaching, doing mini lessons, and then working with teachers individually to really look at how do we teach reading and that science of reading. So I'm really excited about that. We have a kickoff on Friday for our elementary. The TLA is coming in and doing a mini literacy institute. So that's going to be an all-day workshop with a variety of choices for teachers. So I think that's going to be really exciting. And then on top of that, we have iReady, which I've already talked about, which is our diagnostic assessment, which has a universal screener for dyslexia. So that will be happening in the next couple of weeks. It's new for us. I did send out a letter just kind of letting families know it is new. We're trying to figure out how to use that data. But that's just one piece of data. We have multiple data points that we look at when we're looking at students, whether it's reading or math. And then let's see, and then finally, we have administrators and reading specialists that will be attending a dyslexia conference in Boston. That's in Boston in late November, early December. So it's a 2-day conference workshop, so they will be going. And then our NCSS process, we continue to align that and build that process out so that we are looking at children in a more consistent manner and make sure that the process is aligned pre-K through 12. That's the question.
Well, music to my ears to hear that, this is a focus, and I feel, we really want to partner with the community too to make sure that we handle this in a way that is, going to build something great here. And I think we're on the right path, I feel. So thank you for your great work and leadership too, guys.
Okay.
Thank you, Mrs. Collins. So, as we said before, all learning stems from literacy. So it's just
One of the building blocks, right?
so incredibly important. So thank you so much. You sure can.
Have you gotten any responses from parents about the email about iReady?
I got one email around just some specific questions, but that was really it. Are you getting lots of questions around?
Yeah.
Okay.
The way I read that email was that the leadership hears parental concerns that there hasn't been proactive sharing of information up to this point, right? I read it to say, we hear you. We're developing a very comprehensive strategy and practice. And while we develop it, we're letting you know that we're using these tools, learning how to use them, and we'll be sharing information as appropriate, but we don't have like actual concrete each assessment to share with you just yet, right? That's how I read it. But I think some people read it as we're assessing your students and not sharing the information with you.
Okay.
So I just wanted to bring it up here because I feel like there's a lot of value in everyone just, being on the same page.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to let you know that I did get a couple of inquiries about that.
Okay. And we can certainly always send them my way, and I'm happy to talk with anybody about it. And so that was the intention, was to let families know that we are doing this new diagnostic. We actually don't want to give out reports if we don't actually know how to talk about them yet.
Right.
So, and then we are going to look at how do we consistently give out information in a way that makes sense for families.
Right.
So I do think that there is, teachers are reporting out to families, but I think there's some inconsistency on how that happens.
Right.
So those are the things that we're going to work on this year. So you are absolutely correct in how you interpreted the letter. So, but yes, please send anyone my way.
Yeah, I think there's going to be, there's going to be a period where, people want to believe that things are sort of adjusting. And I think there's like a little bit of, it's almost like PTSD left over from before. Do you know what I mean? Like what's happening? What are they hiding? Like which I people are concerned about their kids and, but I just wanted to ask that question so that you could
Absolutely.
affirm whether or not I was.
And I do think,
Are you good?
Oh,
I have something.
yeah, okay. I do think too that it's a little bit challenging because we get the raw data
Right.
and that doesn't often mean anything to families or lay people. It just doesn't necessarily. So our job as educators is to kind of distill that and make it so that it actually makes sense. You can understand what's happening, where your child's at, and what are we doing to support your child, and what can you do to support your child? I think that's really what parents want to know too, is what can I do at home to help my child with whatever it is, whether it's reading or math. And so those are the things that will, I know that those conversations are happening, but I think having some way that we get information to families in a kind of a concrete manner is something that we have to work towards. It is happening.
Right.
Well, and I just wanted to say that since I arrived here in class, that I'm very impressed by our reading specialists, by our teachers and how they work with literacy. We've also brought on a lot of programming. We brought on foundations. We're bringing in TLA. We're setting the platform to do our work better, but a lot of it has to do with what we're doing too.
Right.
We need to create the training and really talk about as a team, and this isn't just us, it's really Dr. Scoggins and me obviously, but it's a team of teachers and, when appropriate, community members, creating a system that provides the information. But part of that creation is training. So there's not any data we would hide ever. We're just looking to give consistent messaging, and that takes a little bit of time to develop. But it's an absolutely appropriate expectation from the community that we do that. So I just want to put it out there. But we love the information. We love the partnership. We love, even to a point, nobody loves criticism, but we love that feedback because that helps us get better at what we do. And we are building something. Remember, we just, and a lot is that I will thank you. We made a significant investment in literacy. We just hired 2.5 reading specialists to go with our own reading specialist at the elementary level and a full reading specialist at the middle school, which we've never had. Dr. Scoggins, I've seen her transform a school with this. So, we're in really good hands here. It's just, I know where people are in the community and we're going to rise to it, but I don't want to underestimate the talent we have here in Cohasset and how impressed I've been with our teachers and our specialists since I've got here. I think we just have to create a consistent system for getting that information. So I think I kind of said it.
So I think it's important to reiterate a few things, is that one, we have a new leadership team that is taking an ever improving kids first approach to the leadership of the district. Second, and although we're not totally out of the operational woods with the pandemic issues by any stretch of the imagination, this is really the first year where you've had a more unfettered ability to focus on progress rather than reactive operational issues surrounding getting kids in the buildings. And finally, we have a really responsive, accessible leadership team, whether it be our Director of Student Services, our Assistant Superintendent, or Superintendent. And part of their job is to interact with the community they serve, and they do. So if you have an issue, you don't even need to reach out to the school committee, go directly to these folks.
Yeah.
They will respond immediately. And I've seen it. I've been in meetings with concerned parents, and so just don't be afraid. No one's taking it as if it's offensive or overly critical. It's share your thoughts and communicate with us. So, and that's the approach.
And that goes for the staff too. Reach out to the
For sure.
teachers and our principals, and that's usually the first line. But we're in sync. And that's part of what the professional development is. Just in a couple of days, I mean, we're in sync. We're working hard, and we're gonna get this done for everybody.
Exactly, and we've had professional development around iReady, but the implementation of it, then they're going to come back in and help us with how you interpret the data and how you look at it. So until teachers feel really comfortable with it, it's hard to report out. So
and that's not atypical.
Oh, no, that's
That is actually
agreed.
pretty standard with iReady. Other communities that
Doing
use
the same.
iReady are also waiting on delivering data because we have to know how to manage the data. That's really what it's about. I mean, obviously, we wouldn't have invested in the tool if we didn't believe it was a great data source.
There's a
But-
lot of ways to drill down on the data, which is really nice, but you also have to know the tool so that you can really look at those pieces. So,
Yeah,
and
and
that's why we have so
and I
much
know we do have a reading
professional
specialist next to us, so I don't know if you have any thoughts on it.
Yes, I do not use iReady, but I do work with a lot of data, and it doesn't mean a lot if you aren't using the right, tools to interpret it. So
knowledge. Exactly.
I interpreted the email the same way that Mrs. Colery did. I was also here for your presentation and your explanation and taking notes about it. And I think that when people are hearing that in a more excerpted way, it feels so different. So
Absolutely.
we are, we're experiencing the full text of what's happening and in context. And then it's easy to get nervous about what's
Of
happening
course.
with your kids. And so I think that we just need to know that with a little bit of time, the data will be available in a way that we can use it as families. And the tiered letters are going to complement that. So it feels like there are so many things coming in from different angles that are going to help support families. And then just to create that team approach between
That's right.
home and school and
Exactly.
everything. So I feel like it's going in the right direction. It's just so hard when you're experiencing the excerpted version and not the full
Exactly.
version that we do here.
Right. Yeah. No, I appreciate that. I appreciate you asking and sharing for clarification. 'Cause I think that's important.
Yeah, and we can look for further opportunities to clarify our messaging
Absolutely.
and our approach in other forums, whether it be, copies specifically
Absolutely.
about that. And by copy, I mean just meetings, but apparently that's become a synonym for me. Anyway,
Great. No, that was, I really appreciate that, Sean. Thank you.
and it is Dyslexia Awareness Month.
Right.
Correct.
It's
Yeah.
important. May I move on to the next?
Please.
Okay, wonderful. So,
Zoom, Dr. Sullivan? Is your Zoom still good? I got kicked off.
Oh, I'm still
I'm still.
Too many Zooms in the room. It happens at home.
I am on, yeah, well, this is Zoom right here, so you can see it.
That reminds me, just if you're watching at home and you can't hear any one of us, just let us know, type a Q&A so we know.
Sure.
You can't hear one of the speakers, okay? Yes, Dr. Sullivan, let's move on.
Absolutely. So I am very happy to have our three student advisors, liaisons, I should say, to the school committee here today. It's wonderful to have students again in person in a school committee meeting. And these three students are amazing people and wonderful students. So I'm very proud to say that they're going to be representing the Superintendent School Committee Advisory Council in not only kind of collecting voice from that group, but also collecting it from their peers. They're all high school students and off to good years and hopefully great success this year, I'm sure. So what I'm going to do, even though I think the committee has met them, I don't think you've ever seen them in person, which is interesting. It's just like images for you. But I'm going to have each of them come up one at a time. We have a new liaison, it's Mercedes. I'll have her come up first. But so Mercedes, come on up. And just tell Mercedes, you can just have a seat there. You can just tell the committee here a little bit about yourself, what grade you're in, and some of the things that you're interested in, and also, what drove you to want to be a part of the Superintendent Advisory Committee. And I have to thank Mercedes, because Mercedes was one of our student representatives on our steering team.
Oh, awesome.
So all that steering, the steering team for the strategic plan. So all the strategic plan, when you see me walking around with those big boards, Mercedes had a lot of voice in that. But she did a wonderful job of not only presenting her thoughts and maybe some students who she was close with, but giving us a broad sense of what students needed. And really the primary goal of this group is to promote student voice. And this year we're going to focus a lot on subcommittees and working in small groups to talk about various parts of our operations. And I'm very excited about that. So, sorry, Mercedes, that was a long introduction, but Mercedes, can you just tell a little bit about yourself?
So I'm Mercedes O'Neill, and I'm a junior at Cohasset. And I've been a part of the Superintendent Student Advisory Council since my freshman year. And I joined that council going into high school. I really enjoy talking with my peers, and there are concerns that we talk about. So I was very excited when given the opportunity to talk to Dr. Sullivan himself. And just to know a little bit about me, I play the viola in a private orchestra, and I also enjoy playing volleyball. And I'm very thankful to be here. So thank you for inviting me to be a liaison this year, and I'm excited.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wonderful. So Mercedes, I'll have you take a seat back there, and then at the end, we'll open it up if you have any questions for the groups.
Sounds
So thank you,
good.
Mercedes.
Thank you.
Really wonderful to have you here. So next I'll have Jenna coming up. So Jenna, you but wonderful soccer player in addition.
Thank
So
you.
We're probably missing you a lot, I would assume.
Yeah, definitely.
But Jenna was a liaison last year and did a wonderful job. But I know this is probably, for many of you, the first time actually seeing her off of a Zoom. So Jenna, maybe tell a little bit about yourself as Mercedes did.
Yeah, so hi, it's great to be back. And obviously it's really awesome to be here in person. So I am going to be I am a senior now. I can't believe I'm saying that at Cohasset. And this is my going on 3rd year for the Student Superintendent Advisory Council, which I'm very proud to say. It's been a great 3 years working with Jake, Mercedes, and obviously Dr. Scollins and Dr. Sullivan. And yeah, I'm just super thrilled to be here again and give you guys updates, but that's pretty much it. I think you all know a good amount about me. Play soccer, I swim. That's about it. Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
And embrace the senior title.
Yes, I can't even believe I'm saying that out loud. It still hasn't really hit me yet, but
And it's going to be a wonderful year.
yeah, it's gonna be a great year.
A lot of things to look forward to.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, thank you, Jenna.
Okay.
See you back there. I'll have Jake come on up. Jake was also last year via Zoom, but Jake, welcome.
Yeah, hi, I'm Jake. I know most people know me here. I'm a senior, and outside of school, I like to perform like I'm a theater person, so that's exciting. And I joined this group because when I was a freshman, I was on student council, and one of our responsibilities was like going to a couple meetings and helping provide what we wanted in terms of a new superintendent and assistant superintendent. And that was like, it was really nice to have actual responsibilities and like actually affect the school from student council. And I wanted to do more of that. And when I heard about this opportunity as a sophomore, I was like, yes, I want to join this. Like, this is how I can help the school and like listen to what other people want and, actually like represent people. So I'm really happy to be here, and I love coming to the school committee meetings, and you get to say, oh, I have a school committee meeting tonight, and people are like, wait, what? And I'm like, no, I go for like 10 minutes. But so that's like probably my favorite part, but talking to the superintendent is pretty cool also.
That's great.
Nice.
I gotta quote that. I mean, I don't know if everyone feels that way, but that's good. Good points there.
I wish I could only go for 10 minutes.
You're working on it.
But certainly, Jake, Jenna, and Mercedes are wonderful representations of our amazing Cohasset student body. So we're really proud to have you there. Jake, I'm gonna just stay there, but if there's any questions, if either Mercedes or Jenna want to come up and take the mic from Jake, go ahead, for sure. Any questions or thoughts from the committee?
I don't know, you guys can just fire away. I don't have any questions for them. I just wanted to say welcome, and I know that we'll hear, updates from them as they come individually at the following meetings. So I don't want to keep them too long. I know it's a school night, but if anyone has any questions for any of them, fire away.
So,
All right.
yeah, but I will just say one thing. The getting the student voice in this process is huge. So as the newest committee member, that's going to be really important for me. I have little kids, so I don't get the full view. And so I'm really excited that you guys are doing this. So thank you for representing your peers and the students in Cohasset schools here, so that we know what we can focus on to make better.
And they will start cycling through, so you'll have one of them October 20th, and we can discuss how we're going to do that based on your schedules and everything. But that will be good input for you. So it's really input from their whole team.
So thank you.
Wonderful.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys.
All right, enjoy it. Thanks for being here. Okay. Shall I continue?
Yes, please, let's go.
Wonderful. Okay, so next up, we have, well, I guess we do have the gymnasium usages first. Okay.
Yeah, which is good because we have members
That's
in
good.
the
I was thinking
in the
that.
audience.
I was gonna suggest we put it, so that's good,
Yeah.
So you want to talk about the request that came to the school committee, but I don't.
I'm happy to, if you want to, I can do that. If you want me to introduce it, I can.
Yeah,
Okay.
introduce it, and then I can show some images and we can talk about that.
Okay, well, the basketball boosters had sent us a letter that they composed about their concerns surrounding their ability to use the gymnasiums to conduct the youth basketball programs. And as we know, prior winter months, we actually weren't allowing, outside groups into the gymnasiums at all for safety precautions. So those concerns have been alleviated now. So the remaining issue is the logistical challenges surrounding how we currently use the gymnasiums, which is they double as eating spaces now to maintain that social distancing so that we are sort of quarantine proof.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of furniture in there. So I had received a letter. They'd expressed the concern, asserting that there's a lot of social emotional value to allowing children, especially the formative years, when they're first learning the sport of basketball. It's important to allow them to be able to do that. And obviously in the colder weather months, if they don't have access to gymnasiums, there's a limited amount of places they can play. There's some areas they can rent and cost money. So they're looking to do, they're looking for us to do everything we can to sort of make it happen for them. So I know you have more specific details about what our current usages are. And I'm sure that you may want to comment in a moment. I just want Dr. Sullivan to sort of present some more information concerning what the challenges we're confronting are surrounding the ability to have youth programs, have access to the gymnasium.
Yeah, I mean, essentially, you hit on the major challenge, which is our spacing, which was voted on in August, that we're reviewing today. And I think it's really important that anything we do starts with safety. And basketball is essential and important as a sport. It was big in my life. So, you can't get a bigger fan than that. But I do want to make sure that our school environments are safe. And at the time that we voted on it and what we put into place right now, we have spacing needs in our cafeterias. So basically, we're still going under what we believe is the safest way to keep students from transmitting COVID, and also is a surefire way to keep kids from having to quarantine if you separate them appropriately. And what that means at eating settings is anytime you're eating and taking off your mask is 6 feet and really facing the same way, which causes some significant dilemmas for us because we cannot fit the amount of students we need to fit in our cafeterias, in any of them, with that, and still conduct a proper operation of schools. So what we've had to do is we made the determination not to have them meeting in classrooms. First of all, the classrooms are only 3 foot. That's a dilemma. That doesn't work. And also there's allergens and a lot of other things you have to consider in that way. So right now we have, and I can show some images as we get into it, but right now we have at our middle and high school, we have 156 desks in our main gymnasium. So that means there's a third of the gymnasium that is free. The other 2/3 are literally filled with tables and chairs 6 foot spread apart.
Can you bring that picture up while you're describing it?
I don't know if I can do it while I'm describing it, but I will try to bring it up. It's at the end of this presentation, so. Pictures, okay. All right, so this is what we're looking at for chairs, and I don't think I got all of them. I think I'm going back a little further. But you can see the spacing, and they're actually assigned, although it's not as necessary for, it's because we're not going to have close contacts made here. It's still important to know who kids are sitting around, particularly at the middle school level. We found that it's important. So there are specific seats that kids sit in at the middle school, not the high school, but middle school every single day. And they have little stickers on it you can see in the back. So that's just something to keep in mind. It is last year, now, we did make the operational decision that the middle school and the high school would each have 2 lunches, because 3 lunches were a major operational concern, and they actually affected our schedule deeply. If we were able to do 2 lunches, the educational system flows better, and that's what we did. We did 2 lunches. So basically, we have 156 desks here. We have 62 in our cafeteria, which are all spread out. And our largest middle school lunch is about 197 or 198. So we're not in a situation like we were last year when we had even 3 lunches, where we were able to truncate them and put them in a third. It's basically, this is where we are. And again, this is a significant dilemma for any group that would be coming in and using it, because that's a lot of breakdown and setup. So I'm just giving all the dilemmas now, and then we can talk about it. If you move over to the Deer Hill School, there's 2 more rows back here, but there are 66 desks at Deer Hill. These are heavy desks, and there's literally no place to store them. So these are used every day for our lunches, okay? And then the Osgood, you have more of the tables. Now there aren't quite as many tables here, but there are 25 of them set up in one half of the gymnasium. And then, so that's where we are in terms of the visual of what this task would be. And again, I want the decision about us having the distance to be made from a safety perspective. So right now, we haven't really discussed that. I haven't made any of those decisions, because it is safety. It's as much as basketball is important. I think everyone would give me the fact that safety is most important. So I want to make sure that that's the decision. But just from an operational standpoint, moving in all of these in and out every day, it would be a significant challenge. We don't have the custodial staff to do it. I'm just going to throw out the problems there. You'd also have to put them back specifically in the right way. I'm not sure exactly what our insurance situation would be with outside folks moving furniture in and out. That would be something we'd have to overcome. Again, I'm just laying out all the obstacles. Furthermore, remember that last year we had, in this particular case, the advantage of having wrestling in the spring. Now you have fighting for the space, and the spaces you just saw. JV basketball, varsity, boys and girls, wrestling, okay, using the space. So the idea of, if we were able to truncate this, move all these 2/3 into a third and go back, we're also going to be competing, any outside group is going to be competing with our internal groups, who we're going to have to move some things around for. But the limitations on the ability to access these spaces are significant. And so that's really where I'm coming from with this. It's not, everyone wants to provide this for our basketball league. There are kids. These are our kids. We want to help them, but we are faced with significant dilemmas. We're just not out of the pandemic yet. We're just not there. And this is a dilemma that has been caused by our desire for safety and our struggle to be able to move everything in and out in a way that would outfit even the groups that I know are going to need them that are internal. It's going to be a struggle. That's something to consider. But that essentially, Chair McClellan and anybody who's here, are the obstacles facing us. And Susan, from an operational standpoint, I don't know if there's any other thing you want to mention or you think I covered where we are.
No, I think you covered pretty much everything. I mean, the pictures pretty much tell it all. And, and you're right, the custodial staff, this would be an everyday thing. They would have to take these all down, put them somewhere, and then set them all up every day in the same places, as well as do their normal.
In their ability to access anybody else.
It may even end up being a change in working condition that we have to bargain.
It might be something we'd have to bargain with our custodians. And I think even in the best case scenario, the ability is going to be limited because of these chairs. And remember, in the other gymnasiums too, in wrestling and basketball, trying to compete for them. So that's the kind of where we are. And
Well, that's helpful. I want to turn to the audience. I know there's a few representatives from the basketball program. I didn't know if all or one of you had any questions or creative solutions or suggestions or anything like that. Could you just state your full name and then your address?
You
Sorry.
might want to come up to the mic if you want to. I mean, it's up to you, Chair McCollum, but I don't think they'll be heard at home.
Yeah, maybe if you can stand by that table, just so you can be picked up on the
Just so
microphone.
we have two mics.
It's still a little bit of an awkward
This is
format.
picking up
sorry.
everything from Zoom, and that's picking everything up from 143.
No
So
pressure.
if you
I know,
speak
right?
back there, I'm not sure anybody will hear.
That's fine. Allison Andrews, 171 Hull Street. Well, I appreciate all of this. I have a couple questions. One is, you speak about the winter sports, and how they're all going to be fighting for that. So I guess what is the plan for that? Because there's going to have to be practice after school every day for all of those things. We've always worked with those programs when it's been non-COVID to be able to get in there to use the facility for our practices, as well as the weekends on Saturday and Sundays. This is where most of our games, as well as Deer Hill, are held. So I guess, is there forethought about what's going to happen for that? Like how all those desks are not all going to fit into the third of the gym that's not being used on the other side. So something's going to have to happen there.
Well, they are, just, I don't know, but that's the plan is right now to move them over, which would give a limited amount of space for basketball and wrestling. So that's kind of the problem is we have to put these things somewhere.
Right.
And there's a lot of desks that are they're gonna fill up a third. I'm sorry, I really did.
No, that's fine, that's fine. I think my other question too is, one of the other things I was thinking is in terms of just gym usage during, as it's getting colder, my understanding is that PE classes are being held outside as much as possible for the most part. So then what happens at the high school, Deer Hill and Osgood when it's not warm enough to go outside anymore?
Well, it's a great question. So we have, you can see from this, that this is we're accounting for that by utilizing our cafeteria as a cafanasium. And we have low impact activities, smaller kids happening in our cafeteria. We always have the option to do a health offering or a health class.
Yeah.
So our phys ed teachers have been amazingly creative. At the high school, yeah, they're using that third, and they're also doing, they have other exercise rooms, and they're doing some circuit things, and the same thing with the middle school. And they're very artfully, as they did last year, particularly at the end when all the kids were back, they're very artfully kind of swapping off. I mean, I know last year when they came back, it was getting into better weather, but there were still some inclement days where they had to solve that problem. That's really where we are. This is also, all of this is somewhat of an impediment for phys ed classes. We understand that. But again, it's the total safety approach that has to drive this. And that is, it's a close second is our educational offerings and the way we go about it. But I'm just putting it out there that we have figured out ways to creatively get around that. But it's not easy. So your point is a good one.
I bring her because she works in the Newton school system. So that's why I bring her. So thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak today. I hope everybody got a chance to look at the letter that we penned.
Mr. Andrews, can you just state your full name and your address? Sorry.
Neil Andrews, 171 Hull Street. I live with her. So in general, just to give you the theme of our recreation and travel basketball program, right? Normally we start first week in November and we run through basically the end of February. And in the past, we've been given obviously the gyms Monday through Friday, play on the weekends, et cetera, you know that. The rest of the South Shore is being given gym time. Everybody, every school, all the way down, Weymouth, Quincy, you name it, Marshfield. I was on a call the other night and they're talking about, hey, who's got gym time, who doesn't? We're the only town who doesn't have gym time. That's it. And we have to provide them, in order to play in the league, we have to provide them time. We have to say, hey, we got 10 gym times, we got 12 gym times, we have whatever, the more the better. If we can't provide that, I don't know what we do. I understand we have an option with the Wolves Den. The Wolves Den's $1 a minute, right? And then we have to figure out 5 teams for girls and then all the boys. Multiply that. That's 10 teams. So then we're trekking down to Pembroke on a Tuesday night, whatever the case may be. I don't even need to get into that, right? So that's the thing that we're up against here. And that's just the travel program. You also got the rec program that runs at Osgood Deer Hill. It wasn't even here last year. Last year, to go back to the travel program, everybody ran out of the Wolves Den, the whole South Shore League. We didn't have one stoppage. We had only thing that happened was we had minor stoppages for town issues. That's it. And I understand the whole thing around the pandemic, everything. I understand the safety, but I would flip it back to the fact that I'm not pointing fingers. I'm not whatever. We have Hingham. We have big towns that are figuring it out. And we should be able to figure it out. The ask is this, is that we figure out something with the desks. It wouldn't be a cost to you guys. And that's it. We have to figure something out in order to at least get partial gym time. Paul knows. Paul coaches. If you guys have kids that play basketball or whatever, that's kind of what it comes down to. This is the last year for me and my daughter. She's in 8th grade. I've been coaching since 1st grade. It's also a lift for us too. You know, we're volunteering our time. We're not getting paid, obviously. We understand that. But we have to provide a place for them to keep the interest going. Number one, because we have low numbers. It's a small town. I mean, we got the numbers last week from Tim Bernica. It's a 50% from 2 years ago, total. So we don't want to do that. It's a hard game to play. We understand. When we were in 4th grade, we had 20 girls. Now we're down to 7, you know? So that's the way it goes. We understand that. All we're trying to do is to come to some sort of a midway point that we can work to get gym time somehow, some way. We might not be able to play. That's serious. We might be able, we'll go, hey, sorry, you can't come here. Not to mention, I'll throw this one in too before I forget. AAU doesn't normally run in the winter. AAU runs in the winter now. AAU sucks up gym space. So they're going to suck up time at the Wolves Den too. So I don't know, since the last time we spoke to them 3 weeks ago, if one of these programs is sucking up gym time already. I don't know. So that's all we're asking for. We're just asking for to be able to play along with what the other towns were. I totally agree if we had half the towns pushing back, but this is literally every town saying, we're in, we're good to go, let's go. I had Silver Lake, my alma mater, tell us, hey, we got these 10 gym dates today. And I just don't want to have to go back to them and say, hey guys, sorry. That's it.
I mean, that's very compelling. And I hear what you're saying. I feel like I can completely relate to your position both as a parent and as a former athlete. I guess what I'd put out there is, you know, and I understand it, the comparison to other towns around us. Other towns around us are not spacing. We are. And I'll explain that. The quarantine guidelines, we're not spacing. So, I mean, sorry, we are spacing. We're keeping our kids apart. So this is what's necessary to do that. Mm-hmm. They're having a much higher rate of quarantines. I'm going to get into that in a minute, how low our quarantines have been. We've had no in-school quarantines since the start of school, meaning no quarantines that have been caused because of in-school exposure. And that is, to me, paramount. Mm-hmm. So that's the reason you're seeing other gyms open and our gym isn't. The state didn't make us do the spacing, we did. Okay. And this team here made that decision to try to keep our kids as safe as possible. Doesn't make it any easier for me to say that, because it does, I think, impact, unless we can figure out something creative, it does impact our decision-making regarding, basketball.
Well, that's the issue, right? So we all know the problem. Yeah. Okay, so we're all standing here saying that, but we all know the problem. What is the solution? Is that you said we need to figure it out, Mr. Andrews. What is it? So the issue is, it no cost the district, someone moves the tables. Where do they move them? Who are they? Who is paying for them? Okay. Things all, so what these are the sort of things we need to figure it out in order to make an informed decision about whether we can do this or not. Because you can see it's not manageable. First of all, it's not a district program. So it would be the custodians can't do it. And it just be a daily occurrence. It's and I'm not saying it's impossible, it's not. Even room. But there might be a solution.
There is a solution.
Okay, what is it?
I think there's a solution to Mr. Neal's point. Absolutely agree with you as far as the social and emotional with the kids. This is huge on Saturday morning. The rec department needs these kids that play pretty much pickup. And then the weekends is when we get to play, okay? So if we're looking at the Deer Hill only, which is a great court, and we could hire somebody, a moving company that, to Dr. Sullivan's point, they'd have to be certified that if they do get hurt, they'd be able to have some kind of insurance that we would be protected.
Who's hiring them? The basketball program or
I'm
the?
just throwing it out
Yeah,
there,
yeah.
we can all come up with
Well, we're
answers.
not.
So if we could move,
We wouldn't be asking for money from the
Right.
school committee.
No, I understand,
Okay.
but also it's like, so
What I'm
what's
trying
more
to say is
expensive, that or
this
the
is
gym
too many
time,
guys.
right?
Just more confusing when he says we, because his
Yeah,
we's
yeah,
both.
yeah.
So we just need
I'm just trying to understand.
pronounce, that's all we need, Mr. Kearney.
Okay, fair enough. If we could go back to Deer Hill here.
That's true.
Okay, yes, and that court, if we could do that for the weekends and we could move all the desks and put them up on the staging area up top, we'd have it for the weekends and then on Sunday night, put them back. Because I know the weekend, and believe me, I coached last year and we had another coach get the virus. So we were at the den, we never got practice. I saw it with the kids, the dropout rate is unbelievable. Some of these kids, I coach the C team, so some of these kids need this in their life more than anything else.
I get
So,
it.
you know, I saw it firsthand, and I agree with you that there's other towns are doing it. So we just got to come up with a plan to do it. So if we were able to come back, or if Mr. Andrews and the Cohasset Basketball Association was able to come back with a plan to move the desks, and they take care of it, and they make sure that, you know, we have insurance to move it, I don't see why we would have a problem with it. Because the weekends are the key. Weekdays, we might, and here's the problem too, and we all have to know this. You're asking fourth graders to drive all the way to Pembroke, and by the way, that court isn't great. I hurt my knees playing there. And that is definitely something that's taking on parents. So the idea that we don't have any practices, I mean, I can understand that we can't do it every day. There's no way we can do that.
Mhm.
There's no way. But for the weekends on Friday night, if we come in, clear them, you guys have insurance to do it, and you bring them back Sunday and you put it exactly the way they are now, I think would resolve the problem.
One concern there is, and I know everything goes right, they go back exactly where they're supposed to go. Moving trunk blows a tire, something happens. If on Monday morning, those desks aren't right where they're going to be, it's going to disrupt the entire school day. We're going to have kids who can't eat lunch. It's going to be, there's a high cost of it not happening. Very low risk, I agree, of it not happening. But it doesn't happen, those logistics are going to be nightmares. So that's something that we need to think about as well. But one question, Dr. Sullivan, you mentioned for the other winter sports, and I may have misheard it, but you said, are we going to be moving desks for, or finding ways to accommodate those? Are we thinking about ways that might open up gym space that could be?
I need a little more information from Athletic Director Rotundi. I can only give you a skeleton of that, and that was my conversation. First of all, he also, we want to be, these are our kids too. We want to help them. So we want to figure out ways. He saw it as a bigger challenge with the amount of desks we have because of our 2 lunches to move them around for just his programming. But he wasn't absolute in it. He said that, we would be willing to talk and try to figure it out. But I agree with you, Lance, that the key is to make sure everything is moved safely, moved back safely, and put appropriately. And even though it's not a fomite issue, we know as much sanitized. There are some sacrifices that we've made for safety and that really revolve around spacing and masking. And this is one of them. So we want to make sure that unless the decision that we're making down the road is to stop this, which is not what I would advise, but it's something that, we'll be talking about as we move, then it is, a moot point like those other places, or an irrelevant point rather. And so I guess I don't know the exact answer. I just know that because there are 156 desks, as of last year, we had just a third filled because we had the 3 lunches. Yep. And again, I'm not, as much as I respect basketball, I'm not about to change our schedule around or just going to impact kids educationally to lessen the amount of time they have in classrooms. to accommodate this. So it's something that I wouldn't shut the door on. The only thing I'd say is that I know you probably have timelines here. Like one of the things I had said, and I can't remember who I communicated with the email, but someone from your organization, it was basically, if you're asking me right now, would we be able to do it? I feel uncomfortable saying yes, because of the fact that I know these kids depend on being somewhere, and you see the operational issues that are facing us and the decisions that have to be made, which go beyond operation, really, they're about safety. So I know I'm not giving a total answer because I don't have a total answer. And that is actually a problem for this decision, because I think some things have to be worked out still on our end. We're in the midst of a fall season to try to figure out the winter. We're working on it, but we haven't put all the pieces together yet. Because there's 3 gymnasiums involved, there are several sports teams involved, more than there were last year because wrestling was in the spring.
So there's some comments coming in on the Q&A feature, and it might, before you use your last household comment, it might not address your stuff, so I want you to, maybe we can save you. I want to hit the Q&A, so.
Instead, if you want, we'll let you come back up.
Kid Ready 9 Forest Notch. I'm concerned about limiting access to recreational basketball for a second year in a row for the young girls. My twin 3rd graders had a quick season in the 1st grade, and it will be hard to get the demand back if we miss their 3rd grade year. Maintaining sport options for girls is critical to their emotional and physical development. There are many kids in high school who recently scrambled to do their volunteer hours for National Honor Society. Can there be a volunteer program for this to help move desks and chairs on the weekend at a minimum?
I'm going to defer to Sue, but we should talk about, there's some shortcomings for having kids moving furniture. There's some liability there.
Correct.
Potentially.
Yes.
We need to really investigate that, if that was a viable option. I don't see it as one, but, I do certainly want to be creative, and so I wouldn't rule out that possibility.
Courtney Ness, 210 Lambert's Lane. I don't envy your challenge here, and I appreciate your problem solving. Are there parents or kids who can break down and set up daily temporarily? There is an 185% increase in type 2 diabetes in children in COVID, as well as significant weight increases. Physical fitness is extremely important. Does the state DESE have channels to communicate your challenges, and do they see these pictures? It seems to me that the real change needs to be reconsidered by the state and DESE guidelines.
So the state and DESE guidelines don't require this.
Right.
I want everybody to know that. This is our decision. I'm going to own that, okay? Because we wanted to make sure that we were keeping our kids as safe as we thought we could. And I think you're going to see the statistics are showing that we're doing a pretty good job of that.
Well, we're about to see them, but why don't we give a little precursor to that, is that how many intramural close contact related quarantines have there been since the beginning of the school year?
There's 0. Now,
Zero. It's by design.
We haven't had a tremendous amount, our cases have moved, but it is a short time period. All that aside, the fact is the answer is 0. And I believe it has some to do with vaccination rates, but it has a lot to do, I think, with our spacing. And it's also, remember, the key here is to keep kids in school. I know there's been talk about test and stay, but I just want to put this out there too, because that's an item there. Test and stay doesn't work for extramural contacts. It doesn't. We can't use it. If you are at home and kids at home and has a contact from a family member, we can't test and stay that kid. We can't. It's only for intramural. So we basically spaced people out so that we're in a good spot. That's us. I just want to be clear. That's not DESE. So DESE's already said that. And that's why, to your point, which is a valid point, you have other districts who are able to open their gymnasiums because they made that determination.
But the issue is that there might not be one has to substitute the other, right? So in other words, we might be able to figure out a way to get both, but that's what I'm saying. Until we have that concrete solution, sort of suggested or proposed, this is more of an open discussion right now, so we can get that sort of wheel turning. But and I don't want to cut Ms. Cleary off from, oh, you lost the connection.
Well,
So,
it was, I have Jenna.
okay.
I can even, you go ahead, actually, you. It's easier to someone else.
So I have one from Jack Sylvia.
Yeah.
Can we use ESSER 3 funds to get these kids playing basketball, huge part of social emotional for them? And April Sylvia Fair Oaks.
Wait, what's the number?
There's no number.
We need a number, Sylvia's.
So, well, I.
40.
Thank you.
I guess I need more information about what we could use ESSER 3 funds for that would help kids play basketball.
Can I ask some clarifying questions? 'Cause I'm-
I mean that sincerely, I just don't
What's
understand.
that district program?
What is
Right,
it?
no, it's not a school
It's
program.
not a district
ESSER
program.
funding is
That's-
for
that's-
school
that's where I think
programming.
ESSER would come out of play.
No, but I mean, I guess I'm just confused as maybe I'm, okay, so I'm firing all of it. What would we do with the money to help with the situation?
Staff.
This is staff move the.
Staff the moving?
Yeah.
Well, we've already increased custodians, we've done that, and it's still not, and this would take multiple
Can I
custodians.
ask some
Not one
questions?
custodian,
I
two.
don't have any direct experience yet with this basketball program, so I don't know necessarily the logistics of how it works. So how many gym spaces do you need?
As many as we could get. I mean, we
But-
need, I don't know about need. Well, let me ask you this question. This gym, the high school,
Yeah.
it's going to be used on weekends, right? During the winter, it has to be.
Why?
Why?
There's no way that the gym wouldn't be used on weekends, correct? It'd be
Right.
cleared out, it'd be cleared out for Friday night basketball games.
So I don't know, I mean.
It would have to be.
I would imagine that we're gonna have to move, at least to the back third to pull the bleachers down. To be able
You're
to,
going to run full court MIA basketball games.
we're gonna have to run full court, right?
Yeah, they're going to be,
Remember, the full court is not the whole gym, it's a big gym, so it's not
Yeah.
the whole gym.
it's one way. It's
Correct.
there to there, baseline to baseline, right?
Yeah.
So these desks are going to be gone for the whole weekend because you're playing basketball games potentially on Friday night and Saturday night.
They're gonna be moved over.
The
right.
desks are gone already.
Remember, we're also sharing with our other sports
Wrestling.
teams, too.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there should be gym time available there for us to play on weekends.
It might be. So, I mean, these are things,
Okay.
these are some things we can talk about. I just don't, the way I understood it, and please correct me if I'm wrong with this, but you have, and I respect this because I live this, but you do basketball pretty much all week, correct? With the different leagues.
Games are on
practicing.
weekends.
Games
And
on
on the weekends, practices are during, for the whole program are usually during the week, Monday to Friday.
So working a system around our current sports teams
Mhm.
might be able to happen as we move out things. It's just, it was the totality of the request, which was, I understood, basically every day of the week, if I'm incorrect.
In a perfect world, sure.
Well,
But-
I will. These are the
some sort of-
creative, this is a
We'll take
perfect world. so they-
50% and we'll figure out how to move the desks.
What's the least amount of gym space that would be usable for you?
I don't know.
So.
A couple gyms, it depends on the numbers. It's how many teams we have.
How many, I am showing my ignorance about our facilities here, but how many, the Deer Hill, I've only seen it set up as a cafeteria. Is it one basketball court?
Just one,
One full length.
Right,
one full length.
okay. So if the Deer Hill was the court, right? I feel like it's a good thing to try and work toward a solution, right?
Well, I'm
Yes.
comfortable with working the youth basketball league around our movements that we have to do for our varsity. And
Okay, so that would say this,
That to me makes
Okay.
sense, because we're gonna have to move these, as you said, okay, give credit where credit's due, to move these things out,
Right.
we're gonna have some space. It's just, I feel a little bit, and I know we've come a lot of time this, but it's important stuff because it's kids. But I was hesitant because of the totality of the request, and I don't want to disrupt your ability to go elsewhere to provide that and get caught kind of in between.
We
So-
prefer not to have our.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Hesitant to promise you something, and
Yeah.
then all of a sudden, as bad as, I understand the travel isn't ideal at all, it's actually really problematic.
Yeah.
It's still better to travel and play than not to play at all, and I didn't want to cut that off for you. So
Right.
we can continue to work with Athletic Director Tundi to try to figure out something around that. I think we should do it pretty quickly.
We have.
When do you need, what's your timeline?
As soon as, I mean, again, as soon as possible.
Is there like after a certain date, you can no longer?
It's not after a certain date, but it's October 1st now. I mean, the first week in October. We'd like to get this done. I don't know what the boys' leagues are bigger. I don't represent the boys' leagues, but I'm going to assume that they have to have the answers soon, within the next, I don't know, end of next week.
Yeah, I mean, keep in mind, our winter sports don't really begin until after Thanksgiving.
Monday after Thanksgiving, practice starts.
Okay. So that is, you know,
Can I just ask one question? The spacing thing. So we're the only town within a X amount of whatever radius that participate, that we decided to do this spacing?
no, Hull is doing it as
So
well.
Hull too, the other bigger towns with higher populations don't do this.
Well, part of it is because they can't. So the rules around the DESI rules where everybody has to be in 5 days a week for 4 school days. And you can't have a situation where you have kids that are being taught remotely, except in situations where there's a quarantine, which is a specialized situation. With that, there are many communities just can't fit the amount of kids in their rooms at 3 feet or in their cafeterias at 6 feet to do that. That's part of the reason we were in a hybrid format last year. So the bigger the district, often the bigger the problem. So I don't want to be disparate. I'm just saying what we decide. I'm not, everybody else, everyone has their individual challenges.
Right.
Perhaps their challenges were, yeah, and I've heard this, we'd love to do some spacing because we understand how that's a safety factor, but based on the rules we were provided, we can't do it. So then it doesn't become an issue because you can't fit kids in a lunchroom or a gymnasium and space them out. So you don't. And that's why you have open gyms. But we can't.
So in order to, I'm sorry.
So we're like out of comments, I know, Craig's gonna.
You guys, this is it. This is it.
I just have one more
Because
question.
we asked questions, so there was like, I'm not counting that against you, but.
No. It's, I know that we're out of time soon, but can you tell me again about the why is the cafeteria at the Deer Hill School, the cafeteria not being used for lunches? Or is it being used for lunches? Are there that many lunches?
We have a thing, but we also have a similar question. Can I piggyback the question on, or do you want to?
I'm happy to keep that.
It's the same question, yeah.
That doesn't count.
So it doesn't count.
Well,
Only if I get a name and address.
Now,
Craig's done with me.
so the principal and team made a decision that it was a better operational system to have the gymnasium as a lunch setting.
Yeah.
And that would open up for, as the question was asked, for phys ed in the cafeteria.
Well, they couldn't fit.
And they also couldn't fit, so they either have a split, so, and this is what the question is, the split is half, oh, well,
Let me just read the question.
Yeah, so the question is, at Deer Hill.
it's the same question.
I need a name and an address though.
Yep, from Chris Kennedy, 31 Ledgewood Drive. He's a Cohasset Festival board member. At Deer Hill, can half the desks from the gym be moved back to the cafeteria so we at least get one gym back? Wouldn't that open up space for the gym class as well? Make sure the desks don't fit in the cafeteria, to be spaced out.
Not at the amount of lunches they have, the way they run the lunches and the way they run their schedule. It's a scheduling decision.
Yeah.
And, and honestly, respectfully, I don't want to break up a schedule. Like, I want the schedule to flow, and it's necessary based on supervision. And what we have for supervision, that we can't split supervision amongst 2 spaces that are, by the way, on polar opposite sides of the whole building.
Right.
So that's also tremendously taxing on our cafeteria staff. We have to move to the cafeteria and then move all the way over to here to feed the 2 groups. Just doesn't make sense. So it was an operational decision for about 4 or 5 different reasons to do this. But I understand it might not look logical, but there's actually a lot behind it in terms of a schedule.
Maybe I could suggest this as a next step. And perhaps from your end, if you could let us know what your minimum requirements are. Like, if you get less than this, it's not even worth it. But if you can get 1 basketball court or 2 basketball courts, whatever it is, on Saturday and Sunday, like whatever you baseline need. And then we can take a look at that and think through what we are going to do with our own winter sports.
That's really what it comes down
And
to.
see if there's an overlap. And then we can see where there's overlap and say, okay, yes, it looks like starting on November 23rd or whatever it's going to be, we'll have these gyms available at these times, or potentially can, so we can see what we can do. I don't know if that makes sense.
Can we also make a proposal in that about how we could potentially get rid of the desks and put the desks back just as a proposal of how we can help with that?
Put the desk back where?
Yes.
Well, if in terms of like, one of the suggestions was, can we put the desks up on
The
the,
desk's out of room.
And we're only talking about,
I miss
we're only
yes.
talking about the middle school, correct?
well,
That's the question.
Everywhere.
I mean, no, Deer Hill, because honestly, there's only 62 desks there.
I think all of them.
But it's also where
Right, so it's a matter, we just need to come together with a
Right, so
proposal.
if you guys come, right, with a proposal, next meeting's October 20th, if you give it, I just got the letter on, like, less than a week ago, right? So, I mean, yes, you want it as soon as possible, I get it, but like, you know, we could have theoretically saw this coming, you know, weeks before I got the letter, right? So we need.
Yeah, I guess we
to
thought as a
quickly.
district, the district would know that these are town sports that are happening. I mean, I appreciate what you're saying, but there's a bigger picture. I feel like in some senses here, again, I appreciate all in terms of the difficulties with schedules and settings and all of that, but it doesn't, there's a bigger picture too, that I feel like some things were potentially forgotten along the way. I mean, we almost just got rid of a turf field for an entire season, you know, to redo it, to make the high school kids go to other towns. So I think that there's just a bigger picture. I think from a booster standpoint, we'll happily come together with a proposal back for you. We appreciate that and can do that.
If it's okay with Chairman Cohen, could I work with them to come up with a plan?
I mean, everyone can, it's a
You're a
town,
valued member of this community, Mr.
Yeah,
Kearney.
yeah.
Absolutely.
but.
A conflict of interest, is that what
Which
you're
has,
saying?
which has effectively been
Everybody's
disclosed.
full disclosure, I'm a coach, and I have an interest.
And I just want to say, we're, to your comment about the turf field, and we're doing everything we can as a group to make sure we have the best facilities for our kids in a timely fashion. And we were very thoughtful around that. And when it came time to make a decision, we made the correct decision. You're not going to see anything different from us. So I don't think we should be casting any webs that say that anyone here is trying to do anything. If that was the big picture, is that we're not managing things properly, that I would not agree with that. And I'd welcome more conversation about that, because I think it's totally the opposite. The big picture for me is the safety of the kids, and I will hold tight to that.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, really.
Megan Berry, 11 Tad Lane. Thanks everyone for all your hard work over the past 18 months on these difficult issues. If DESE is not requiring us to space, is there some type of metric or benchmark we need to reach when the district is able to stop spacing?
Seems like it could be a segue.
Yeah, it could, but we have another guest here.
Well, I want to.
Yeah, when people are vaccinated, they can be closer than 6 feet to eat. Right now, you are not a close contact if you are 6 feet away when you eat. And that goes away when everyone, 80% plus, right, is vaccinated. That is the answer.
I mean, what we're trying to do is just keep, to me, my personal outlook on this is that like the number one concern after last year is to keep these kids in front of their teachers. I don't want, I've said it before, don't want anyone at the kitchen table in front of a laptop, right? And so like, and I'm sorry, like, again, as important as athletics are, they are, at the letter that the basketball booster sent us points out a number of valid concerns, social, emotional, physical well-being, absolutely. Okay, I'm sorry, as a school committee member, my personal perspective is that academics are come first, they come first.
No, and I respect that, Craig, and I would just want to add something that they're still going to play basketball in with other kids. So as far as getting it, they could get it here, they could get it there, they can get it anywhere.
What we're avoiding is in-school
Right.
contacts,
I'm
though.
not talking about the spread.
That's what we're talking about.
As I think Mr. Andrews pointed out, I mean, we have very low infection rates here. I'm talking about, there's rules about close contacts that mandate that kids are out of school if they're within a certain distance and unmasked or unvaccinated, whatever it is, right? And right now, our setup makes it so that they're not out. We've kept them in school. And so if we can still maintain that and get these kids in to play basketball, that would be awesome if we can do that. But personally, I'm never going to be in favor of anything that adversely impacts the district operationally during the day for the kids, okay, from the academic perspective. But there very well may be a solution that where those two things are not in contradiction or adverse to one another. Working.
That would be wonderful. And that's what I look forward to.
Right, so let's see, it sounds like they will be putting something together. But I think we have another comment.
Yes, my name is Bill Rennie, and I live at 9 Forest Notch. I have 4 kids in the school system. I have a daughter who plays on Neil's team. She's played with him for 8 years now. But I'm also a parent of twins in the 3rd grade who, you know, I had the opportunity to volunteer and coach 2 years ago for the 1st grade, you know, rec program. We didn't have that last year. The rec program, as far as I know, just operates in Deer Hill in Osgood. And I should say, you know, I'm not on the board. I'm not directly tied to the basketball program, just a parent who's volunteered. I do support everything that the Andrews have said tonight. But I would just ask that, you know, I just learned about this really, you know, within the past few days, you know, when they were moving tryouts outside, that there would be no access. So I would ask that the conversation can continue. You know, the rec program in particular doesn't start until December. And again, it's in those two gyms. And it's for the younger kids. You know, I myself can tell you, you know, I've moved furniture in these gyms over the years when we've shown up and it's been full of chairs. So there could be something creative we can come up with and work with. I mean, I appreciate the work you do. You guys put in a lot of time. So thank you for that. But I just want to, you know, there's a lot of parents out here part of this program that want to try and be helpful and be part of the solution. So as long as we don't shut the door on it, you know, this week and next, and, you know, can work with you. So I appreciate it.
I think you're right, Bill. I mean, if there's a solution that we can come to where everyone sort of gets their way, then let's do it. I mean, we just need the details though. I mean, you know, that's all. We just need to put our heads together and we can't just do it right now, right? So.
We'll get you the details.
Thank you.
Perfect.
Thank you. Participation.
Okay.
Andrew Sims, 9 Hemlock Way. Hi, everyone. Thanks for your time tonight. We were wondering what the anticipated practice schedule is for varsity basketball, days and times and locations, boys and girls. Thank you all very much. Do we have that yet?
I don't have it.
Yeah. So we'll ask AD Rotundi to also maybe weigh in on this.
Yeah, I mean, and I guess I'm speaking to the Andrews and anyone else that's listening that is on the board, if there's a proposal that comes together in enough time to get it on the agenda for the next meeting, then I think it makes sense to have Athletic Director Rotundi present so that we can speak a little bit more intelligently about these things. But again, I mean, you know, we all know the challenges, we all know the considerations here at play. So just put something together and yeah, then of course, I mean, Mr. Rotundi needs to be here to speak about, you know, schedules, things like that. I mean, Dr. Sullivan can't possibly be charged with that knowledge. I mean, that's why the athletic director, you know, especially off the top of his head.
Yeah, no, I mean that respectfully. If I had it, I'd tell you. I just don't have it. So.
Yeah.
Of course. So, all right. So, thank you all. Okay, for coming.
Thank you very much, folks. It's good to see people here live.
Yes, and thank you for the basketball wishes letter and getting this on the agenda. It's obviously a pretty important issue for people in the community. So
yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Stay in touch and let us know if you have a plan.
All right. Shall I move on to the next connected item, I guess I would say.
No.
So this is our, so this is a review of, as we promised, after 6 weeks, reviewing the fall school safety measures and operational considerations for Cohasset schools. I just want to reassert a few things here. That just as we started out on our, when we looked at this, and I presented when it was actually before the mask mandate came out and you were approving a policy that you were creating, and I presented a bunch of safety measures that I felt after, you know, working with my team that we would be effective for the district. The main objectives at that time remain the same, and they're to keep students, families, and staff safe. Objective number 1. To provide the best educational and social emotional environment and offerings that we can. And number 3, and you can see the tabs, to remain in an in-person teaching and learning environment. That was a driving objective to everything we set up in terms of our sort of measures. And we have always said that reviewing all operational procedures after 6 weeks is paramount to determine their efficacy. So that's really what we're here to do that. And because this meeting was actually set, if you remember, it was set for October 1st. With October 1st as the date when they were potentially going to lift any potential mask mandate for a population that was vaccinated over 80%. This became a logical meeting for making some of those decisions and talking about it. It's shifted because now we have a November 1st date to set up, get into that, to set up any potential unmasking of vaccinated individuals. But this is still a good time we can discuss and make some decisions as we go forward. This is a chart, and I went off of Mr. Colastri from the Board of Health, his chart, where he showed how COVID has hit Cohasset and since the pandemic, and you can see the number of confirmed cases throughout the months. And that dipped back up a little bit in September, as you can see through the chart here. But it does show a definite movement. Likewise, these are our, we didn't start tracking until September of 2020. In terms of, remember, we were out from March on, nobody was here. So we really started tracking it, as did other districts, in September. You can see there's been, last year there were 84 confirmed cases, and that means staff or students, not who we could confirm, and I just want to use the word confirm, transmission within schools, but who had COVID. And you can see that we've had 5 since. We had 2 last week, and this week we've had 3, which I'll list on Thursday, of folks in the community who have contracted COVID, not here, but outside. So you can see how it's kind of worked. And in October, we've hit a situation where we're kind of mirroring the town, quite frankly. Vaccination rates, this is an important number. This is just from our MIIS system, our Massachusetts Immunization Information System. This is also cross-referenced with SNAP system. So there are no overlaps here. This is accurate data right now. Well, it's actually as of Monday that was in our system. Remember, we're asking in terms of just in the same order that the state has asked for attestation for vaccinated staff and vaccinated students. We're asking for that by October, was it 14th? No, 7th. October 7th, because we have to make an attestation on October 15th for any school that reaches the 80%. We do not have, and I'll get into this more thoroughly as we go, we do not have a ruling yet from the state whether we can look at the middle school and high school as separate schools. There was a lot of interlocking sort of language that mentioned school, mentioned building, and it was kind of blurry. I've asked for clarification directly to the from the commissioner, and what I've received is that they will be clarifying that, and they're going to do it soon in an FAQ. So as you know, throughout this whole pandemic, they've issued FAQs to us, and they're going to issue that in an FAQ. And it will tell us, can we look at, if we want to, the middle school and the high school differently, or do we have to look at it as one building? It's a very important consideration as we move forward into our next phase here. Right now, though, it does not appear, and this is just a thought, I don't have the full data, based on this data, that we're going to make it if we look at the middle school separately. We're 49.3% in the MIIS system. And remember that 38% of 6th graders are only eligible for vaccination based on birth dates by January 1st. So our 6th graders are just turning 12, and that's just eligibility. The high school is a different story. High school.
By January, that might change. I'm just.
Correct. It might change.
Because the eligibility.
That's correct. And you'll have more of the 7th and 8th graders getting vaccinated too.
Well, they'll be eligible.
Right.
So the high school right now, and this is, again, I want to just stress, this is just students. This does not include staff. But from what I gather, and I don't have the formal data yet, I'm gathering it, the vaccination rate of our staff is very high. So my thought is it would only bring it up a bit, because it is a combination of staff and students, and it's considered one set of data in terms of the 80% that we're looking at. So we're 84.35% at the high school. Again, the town of Cohasset right now, in our last update from mass.gov, had 83% of its residents fully vaccinated and 8% partially vaccinated, which means at least one dosage of the Pfizer or the Moderna.
Yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt, but that's eligible. Yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt, but that's eligible people, right?
Do you want to have those?
So, Mr. Moeller, can you wait until the presentation's finished and then ask a question?
I'm sorry, I just wanted to understand accurately what it was, but that's fine.
So can you do that after the presentation? Then that will be one of your comments. Great.
Then no, I would say, I say no.
All right.
Okay. I just want to, well, this data is from mass.gov, and it's from, if you look at the vaccination work, if you look at it's under the vaccination interactive dashboard. You look at the vaccination interactive dashboard, and it lays out for us a bunch of different percentages regarding vaccination and vaccination by population, vaccination per capita. It lays it right out for us. And also this coincides with what our Board of Health shares. So they're looking at the same data. Just some in-person learning guidance. I mentioned this when I was talking about basketball, but that's the requirement for what we need to do in person. All districts and schools are required to be in person, full-time, 5 days a week this fall. That remains. And we're doing that. All schools are currently in person, full-time, 5 days a week. And I'll just read this a little wordy, but since the start of school, all of our learning has been provided in person for the guidance. We have provided both asynchronous and synchronous learning for students who have had to quarantine, if requested. There have been limited quarantines, all of which were connected to extramural exposure. And my conclusion from that is thus far the safety measures, which I'm going to get into in a minute, we have in place have helped us to avoid any quarantines arising from in-school close contacts. So we've had some in-school close contacts, because remember, close contacts are 6 feet, okay, masked or unmasked. And, but within 3 feet is a quarantine close contact if you're wearing a mask. Because we're outside of 3 feet and at 6 feet when you're unmasked and indoors, and that would be our lunch situations, because we're sufficiently spread apart, we haven't had any quarantine close contacts. And of course, if you're vaccinated, there's some exemptions that we'll get into as we go through this, but that has kept us in school, essentially. I'll read this is wordy, but this does talk about the attestations. On September 27, 2022, Commissioner Riley determined that the mask mandate in all schools will be extended for all until at least November 1st. That means that no matter what's decided.
So it was September 27, 2021, right?
2021.
2021.
I mean, I'm just.
Back to the future.
Doc Brown over there.
I was just like, Doc.
Yes, sorry, I'll fix that.
Sorry,
I apologize for that.
Before it goes out, no.
School districts have until October 15, 2021 to submit an attestation to the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education at the middle and or high school to demonstrate vaccination rate of students and staff combined at 8% or greater. Schools who attest to being at or above the 80% vaccination threshold will have the ability, after November 1st, to make a local decision regarding masks for vaccinated individuals within these highly vaccinated buildings. So I want to be clear on that. It still falls to a local decision, although they're not, if we do hit the 80%, we're not bound by the mask mandate. We have to attest to that. Even if the district is able to attest that 80% of students and staff are vaccinated within a particular school, those who remain unvaccinated will continue to be required to mask, and school districts will not be able to make local decisions concerning unvaccinated individuals. So I'll be clear on that. Right now, even if we are able to attest that we're 80% and that the decision is made by the school committee and the Board of Health that we are to allow the masks to be removed for unvaccinated individuals in that particular school, which right now would look like it would be the high school if if we had the ability to separate them, the unvaccinated folks would still need to mask. So our review, currently all students and staff are wearing masks. We do not have any mask exemptions right now in our schools. All students and staff are wearing masks. And we're collecting vaccination data at our schools to see if we reach the 80% vaccination threshold. I know everyone's aware, I've sent that information out. And as I mentioned, it's really not known yet how sharing the same building will be treated in terms of the calculation of vaccination rates. What I mean by treated is how it will be looked at by the state. And I'll just go through these quickly, just so we have a fresh in our mind for our discussion. But these are definitions of a close contact. Close contacts are defined, I just mentioned this, as individuals who have been within 6 feet of a COVID-19 positive individuals while indoors for at least 15 minutes during a 24-hour period. That's masked around that. Exemptions from testing and quarantine response protocols. If you're asymptomatic, fully vaccinated, close contact. So individuals who are asymptomatic and fully vaccinated are exempt from testing and quarantine response protocols. Very important. Classroom close contacts. An individual who is exposed to a COVID-19 positive individual in the classroom, and both individuals were masked. It's important. Both individuals are masked. So long as individuals were spaced at least 3 feet apart, is exempt from testing and quarantine response protocols. So in the cases where we had positives so far, even though close contacts might have been caused, because of this, they weren't required to quarantine. So I just want to put it out there. That's the guidance. And that's part of why we set things the way we set them. Exemptions from testing, quarantine response protocols, just to continue. Bus close contacts. Individuals on buses must be masked according to federal requirements. As such, individuals who are masked on buses when windows are open are exempt from testing and quarantine response protocols. A close contact who has had COVID-19 within the past 90 days is exempt. And these are the qualifications of that. The exposure occurred within 90 days of the onset of their own illness, and the exposed individual is recovered and remains without COVID-19 symptoms. All from the same document. Test and stay. I mentioned this a bit. Test and stay protocols. For schools who opt for test and stay, individuals who are close contacts can stay in school, and that what really means is they're quarantining close contacts, as long as they wear a mask and take a rapid antigen test each day. School administered, remain COVID-19 negative. This measure is only potentially available, it's only available for in-school exposure. Remove the potential, it's only available for in-school exposure. So if you have a situation outside of school where your son or daughter or child has contracted or has been exposed to a COVID positive individual and is required to quarantine, we cannot put the test and stay process in place for them. That's important to me because that is at the root of a lot of the reasons I want to make sure that we have synchronous opportunities for our children when they're in that scenario. Some of the other reasons that we haven't gone to it yet, and we did work with Cambridge Innovation Centers with our staff in the spring to do some testing, is that we don't lack access to testing, although I will acknowledge that it's becoming harder to come by. Our distancing protocols have basically eliminated quarantine. I'm not saying that there won't be a quarantine. It's just that so far, if we keep our distance and our staff and students work together, we're not going to have these quarantines. You saw the reasons why. None of the individuals we previously identified throughout the pandemic as in-school close contacts tested positive last year. And there's a backlog. It's just a backlog in this from CIC. We're a small district. We are going to need some help. We may have to get creative with it if we do go to something like that. But it is an absolute backlog. And you'll see that on the next slide too.
Sorry, I keep getting kicked off on my laptop, so I'm trying to. Okay.
Oh, it's funny. Not funny, but strange.
Weird funny.
Weird.
Yeah, gotcha.
So pool testing. So pool testing is it's a advocated form of preemptively determining COVID amounts in a particular community to stop outbreaks that may occur moving forward. They now call it routine COVID safety checks. They've moved it to that.
Focus group generated euphemism.
Yeah, well, it was available last year, and it is recommended. Right now, though, and the way it would work is that students would come in, they'd be tested with a shallow nasal swab, they'd be put in a pool of testing, basically one sampling, and then if that particular pool has someone in it, meaning there's a positive, then they go back and they do further testing with those individuals. That's what pool testing looks like. Right now, we're not doing it. We're concerned with the fidelity of the test. If we test a small sample population, it would absolutely have to be voluntary. People would have to opt in. We don't want to encourage anyone who is ill, thinking that they can come in and get a test and avoid doing what they should do responsibly, which is to stay home. We need the support from CIC, and they are backlogged. We've looked into both, CIC's handling all of these, they're handling all types of testing, symptomatic testing as well. And we have a backlog with this testing. And again, like districts who have implemented pool testing have seen little, if any, cases identified. So right now, I'm not advocating for it, but I am not putting up blinders to the fact that it is useful. And it may be something that we want to look at down the road, and certainly consider and discuss. Remember, test and stay, just to go over test and stay just for a second, is the test and stay protocol is that students who have tested as potential, they're have to quarantine because they're in school exposed, only in school exposed, would come in the morning and our staff would swab them, and then they'd have to wait 15 minutes until a test appears as either positive or negative, which I think could be very anxiety inducing, just putting it out there. But I do understand it's a service that our spacing is. I just want to make sure I talk about that because I was talking about what the pool testing was. This is a kind of an odd slide in that the number of quarantines we've had is actually lower than what's on here, but some of the quarantines, and these are all from extramural, so we haven't had any inside quarantines. Some of them move between weeks. So if you have to quarantine for 5 days, they move between whatever the days are before you test 7 days. They move between weeks. So this is like snippets in time, so you can see throughout the district who's actually at home doing synchronous and asynchronous work. So far in the 10-4 to 10-6, it's about this. I'm not exactly confident that it's 100%, but it's fairly good data from where I sit right now. The others I am. So from the 8th, when we started school, to the 17th, we had one at Osgood, one at Deer Hill, and one at the high school. And this is staff and students. From the 20th to the 24th, 4 at Osgood and none at Deer Hill Middle School or the high school. From the 27th to the 1st, 1 at Osgood, none at the middle school, and none at Deer Hill, 1 at the high school. And then you can see where we are now, where I believe we have currently 3 at Osgood, Deer Hill 2, and only 1 at the high school. So it's been a very minimal amount of quarantines, and they're all from extramural. Distancing, and this is from the guidance again, and we've really tried to do this. Schools where not everyone is fully vaccinated should implement physical distancing to the extent possible within their structures. That's important. So when we are following this, they're not requiring what we're doing, but we're following this precept, which is we're doing everything we can to keep the kids distant, but should not exclude students from in-person learning to keep minimum distance. And just from an operational view, all of our schools have begun the year by doing all we can to maintain 3 feet distance, edge of seat to edge of seat. You've seen our classrooms, I've depicted them many times. And people saw it in open house, and 6 foot of distance when eating indoors. Our classroom and eating space furniture, as you've seen a lot tonight, is arranged to maintain that distance. And because of the quarantine guidelines, clearly, and also, because it's proven to keep kids safer. To date, although we have had few in-school contacts created, like I said, we've had no spacing, which again has a lot to do with vaccinations too. Hand hygiene, just to go through this quickly, they're encouraging schools to maintain ventilation upgrades from this past year as feasible. We're doing that. We're trying to advocate for our hand hygiene practices. And we're certainly working with students and staff on this set the stations. Yeah, I mentioned we've done all that. Transportation, again, everyone's required to wear masks on buses, and that's exactly what's happening. Masks are being worn at all times by students and drivers while on buses. The windows are open to a degree that is put in the guidance. As long as students are masked, seats do not need to be assigned, which is from the guidance, they're not assigned. No close contacts have been created on buses because we're adhering to the guidance. Cleaning protocols, unlike some other schools, we're still sticking to our deep cleaning protocols, and we have sign-off sheets on every door that shows that. We're trying to minimize the sharing of materials, although certainly doing it. We are using our locker rooms. Osgood's using a little bit of a different system outside of their classrooms, but because they want to maximize the space in the classroom. But other schools are using lockers, and we're allowing field trips as long as we're doing what we're supposed to do, which is wearing masks and keeping those windows open on the buses. Visitors in buildings, we are allowing approved visitors in the buildings as we did pre-COVID. You will note if you come into a building moving forward, there is a small attestation or asking visitors to fill out that says that they're symptom-free, that they attest that to their knowledge they don't have COVID. We are putting that measure in place just to make sure that everybody is on the same page as they enter our buildings. But we're certainly, as you saw from the open houses, being very welcome to visitors coming in and being part of our community. We need that. Personal protective equipment, we continue to have masks available for anyone who needs a mask. And we have hand sanitizer available outside and inside all classrooms. The nurses' offices, we do have separate waiting areas as we're instructed to do. And then remember that everyone has to wear a mask and is doing so in our nurses' offices. Music, again, we're back to really where we were at the end of the year. It's going well. We do have barriers available for teachers should they need it. And we're watching the heat index. We didn't have any time when we had a situation, and it mainly comes into play in the middle and the high school. Osgood is completely AC, and Deer Hill's it's getting there, and it's certainly better than it's ever been. We're working on these upgrades, but we haven't had a heat day, but we would make that call if it was deemed dangerous for the kids. There's no doubt about it, we did it before. Using those outdoor spaces, love to see that. That's a feature I hope sticks around because it's nice to have kids outside time. There's a lot of research that shows how healthy that is. And then per recess, they're allowed to be unmasked at recess. And remember, nobody quarantines from any exposure outside. So outside is really comparative now, how we can do it. It just shows you some of the measures you saw, this is better than and that is it. So I leave it to you for any discussion you want to have. Of course, we're not going to be able to come up with final solutions today because we're still collecting data regarding vaccination.
Thank you, Dr. Tully.
You're welcome.
So we'll just return to a little more structured version of this. I think we can sort of spiral out of control in the last discussion. So what I'd like is the motion to go to the community voices first before the school committee speaks. Is there a motion to that effect? Motion made by Mr. Leary, is there a second by Mr. Kearney. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, motion clearly passes. So is anyone able to, Mr. Molnar is here, he wants to comment. So we'll go to him first, he's here in person, and can we monitor the Q&A? So Mr. Molnar, do you have any comments? So if you make only because you know why? Because we're doing the hybrid in years past, people just stay in their place, but now this might pick you up. So
I'm Rick Molnar from Forest Avenue, 333 Forest Avenue. I actually wasn't making a comment. I just wanted to point out that I thought it was a typo. You had said that 84% of the residents were vaccinated when it's, or 83 or 84, but no, it's of the eligible. Right, like it is, there is a key difference, right? Because there is a large number of ineligible population, which is actually our elementary students. So it was just an inaccuracy. It wasn't, I don't think that counts as one of my questions or comments. It was just a typo. Kind of like the 2022. So
did it say
it didn't say eligible. That's all. I knew it wasn't. I knew it was just a missing.
It was a typo. I appreciate
so I just wanted everybody to.
Well, it's a really important clarification. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Sometimes what you think you see and what you see isn't the same thing. That was his clear case. So thank you for that.
Do you have any comments, Ms. Pollard? Because we just voted to go to you and the other members of the committee first, so.
I think you actually covered most of my questions. I have spoken or emailed everybody at this point. I am a big proponent of testing in the school. We are, I think, the only school in the area that has no testing in our school. Between the state programs, there's diagnostic testing that the nurse can do just if someone looks sick. There is a test and stay, which I understand would not be very useful because we have set things up so that there aren't close contacts, and so it wouldn't be there. And then there's very few, right?
Well, there's no quarantine close contacts.
Which are the same ones that would qualify for test and stay, is that right?
Yeah, remember, close contact is 6 feet.
Yes, but the ones that qualify, right? So,
Correct.
so it wouldn't. So I understand that. And then there's the screening testing, which I know that you've recently looked into and found out there's a backlog for. I guess I would ask, have we signed up for that backlog so that we're on the list for it? And do we have an estimate of when they might be able to help us?
Yeah, so we're still looking into it. So I just want to be clear that I don't believe we're the only school that hasn't done testing. I think some of that data is wrong. I know I've talked with Noel and Hull, for instance. Noel they're waiting for CIC to give them some guidance that they can help them. They may go to FEMA. Of course, they're not spacing, and they may go to FEMA to get some of the test and stay. But again, you presented some of the reasons where we may not do that. Hull is not doing pool testing, nor is Hull doing.
Oh, I don't think everyone's doing pool. I went testing at all.
There's several, so I just want to make sure that everybody knows that because the statement was made, there's several communities around us that aren't doing any of the testing or one of the testings. So it is, and a lot of it has to do with the backlog. For instance, Marshfield isn't there yet either. They thought they'd be able to start an earlier date. So this is a great question, is when would these backlogs be fulfilled? And my kids go to Marshfield, so I know a lot about that.
Yeah, I've spoken to people at Marshfield who said that they were getting tested with screening.
They're not, from what I understand, the test and stay has not gone into.
Oh, the test and stay, the screening has in Marshfield.
The screening has, but remember, the screening is also, we can talk about the merits of it, but the merits have a lot to do with the amount of people that are involved with it. And if the population is very low involved with it, which I know might be the case in Situate. I know that Ms. Sanchez talked about that, and I know in Marshfield as well. It's something in fact, I was really referencing testing stuff. But, so anyway, what was the question again?
So we did ramble, and there's a lot of mix, right? There are 3 different types of testing that we can talk about, right? There's just regular testing. Somebody seems sick, you send them to the nurse, and the nurse can test, right? And then there's test and stay, which is designed for these close contacts that are, again, as you mentioned, only close contacts that are found in the school. A quarantine contacts, I think maybe it's a different term. And then there is the screening. And I guess my statement was that I believe every school has some form of testing except Cohasset. Not that all of them are there. That may not be 100%. I'm sure maybe you can find one. But my question along the lines was, have we signed up for the screening knowing that there's a backlog? Or have we signed up for test and stay? Or do we have any plans to get any testing in our school at all?
We've inquired. And I don't believe we're officially signed up for it now.
Okay. Why not?
Because right now I don't think it's a measure we need to do. I'd have to talk to my head nurse a little more about our actual status of whether we're signed up or not. But
have you filled out a form and signed it?
I have not filled out a form.
Then we're not signed up. Okay. I guess I would follow up with, I would encourage you to get on the list. We can always back out later, but we can't get moved up the list later.
Very good. Appreciate that.
Okay, thank you for that. Any virtual comments? Okay, so I think probably most people understand that,
here's one. April Sylvia, 40 Fair Oaks Lane, regarding the 80% vaccination rate as the dangling carrot to remove masks, do we have the data as to how many vaccinated versus unvaccinated have tested positive for COVID in Cohasset? This should be very important information for the school to seek out, seeing how important it is that staff and students are to be vaccinated and as the only means to return to normal.
I don't have the data. I don't know how I would acquire that data. I'm not sure. I don't know.
I would encourage We get our data from mass.gov and the Board of Health, right?
Yeah, I don't even know that, I don't know if that's.
Right, so
Not
maybe
that-
that's a question though, like my suggestion would be to ask Pam Fahey if that's information that she has.
So can I understand the question again?
Can you do a reread?
Breakout cases,
Yeah.
So how many are breakout cases?
whatever it's
Yeah.
called.
And so what is the premise here? I'm sorry.
Can you just reread it? I
Yeah.
also need to just get it again. I'm just tired.
Regarding the 80% vaccination rate as the dangling carrot to remove masks, do we have the data as to how many vaccinated versus unvaccinated people have tested positive for COVID in Cohasset? This should be very important information for the school to seek out, seeing how important it is that staff and students are to be vaccinated and as the only means to return to normal. I don't understand it really either, but I think it means like,
Only breakthrough cases.
right, no, I know that's what she's
Why would that
asking, but I
be?
don't know what the
Because I think
relevance
she's trying, I think Mrs. Sylvia is trying to assert that they're using that as the measurement of safety, but it may not be that effective anyway. I think is what she's trying to say. Maybe, I don't know, I'm
Yeah, I'm not gonna comment on it because I don't
So I,
completely understand the question.
but I would think that maybe the public health officials in Cohasset might be a better source of information about whether or not we even have that data point.
Well, I know we're tracking breakthrough cases. And-
We are.
Well, I mean, I'm not, but I know that.
Why not? Just kidding.
Nationally, locally, we're tracking breakthrough cases, but I don't.
Right, so I agree with Mrs. Cleary. I think that Mrs. Sylvia should inquire with the Board of Health about that data.
Yeah, I agree.
No, yeah, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so Jenna Cunningham, 15 Hill Street. I know that the majority of cases that were noted as an increase in August by the Board of Health and used to recommend universal masking in schools were vaccinated individuals. There's a lot of discussion tonight about vaccinating and it being the way out of restrictions. I think it's an important point that vaccinated individuals are becoming infected in Cohasset and transmitting the virus.
It just makes me feel like we need to wear masks forever. That question makes me think, and I could be misinterpreting it, but
I think
am I
that,
crazy?
I mean, I've spoken with Ms. Cunningham, and I think that her point is exactly what you just said, Mrs. St. Ange. If we don't start to take away some of these measures, we automatically connect safety with wearing them. We'll never know if they're not necessary. They become like security, unnecessary security. Basically, I think that's a position that she's maintained. I don't know if that's what she's articulating there, but I'm pretty sure it is.
Whether we like it or not, I don't think that 80% threshold is within the ambit of the school committee. That's going to be that seems to be the directive of DESI that will survive beyond the November 1. So, that's something I think we have to live with. There's no action we can do beyond that.
Okay. Kristen Quinn, 219 Sawyer Street. Resending from 7:30. Oh, sorry, Kristen, we've been getting kicked off of Zoom over and over, so apologies if we did not see this. Vaccination keeps being brought up as the main factor to get everyone back to normal, yet many of those testing positive in this town are vaccinated. I know 3 vaccinated individuals currently. If we reach an 80% rate, yet vaccinated people still test positive, will we still be allowed to get rid of masking and spacing? I think to Mr. Dial's earlier point, it's a DESI requirement right now that if there is 80% plus vaccination rate in a building, we then have the opportunity to deliberate about whether or not we would like to forego masks for vaccinated individuals.
Sure.
Right.
So to get to, because Mrs. Quinn followed up the text message to me, I think, and this is, I think what maybe she was, because I was trying to interpret Sylvia's question, she texted me in response to that. Right now, the demasking, for lack of a better term, is directly linked to vaccination. I think some of these folks are wondering, well, if we're vaccinated and there are these breakthrough cases, do we return to masks regardless of whether people are vaccinated because people are still getting it? That's probably something that might develop if that becomes a real problem. I mean, but that's to be seen. Right now, what we know is that it's directly linked to vaccination, to whether or not you're vaccinated, not whether or not you're vaccinated and you still contract it or how many people are contracting it. It's the masking.
All I know is that we're supposed to attest by October 15th. If it's really 80% masked, and we have to determine what that means, right? And when we are, then if we do reach 80%, which is staff and students, then the mask mandate does not hold true for vaccinated individuals if local authorities, school committee, board of health, determine that.
Right.
All the rest is conjecture.
Right. We're no longer required by the state to have masks.
That's it. So I hear these comments, I'm a little confused a little bit by them, but not in a bad way, just not comprehending the actual meaning behind it. But none of it really is in our control. But really what's in our control is, do we get 80%? And then after that, we can consider all these factors.
If we start to see a lot of breakthrough cases, then
You may determine that you want to keep everybody with the mask.
And it might be a local decision as opposed to a state.
Well, the state sounds like, unless they change their mind, that they're going to give us the authority at 80% to unmask the vaccine. That's what it sounds like right now.
Which they then might change their mind 3 days after we exercise that local authority.
Well, they said October 1st. And
What does that mean?
That would be interesting.
Right.
After 6.5, but we still have like 4 hours to go if they're going to do that.
Well, that's not.
But it definitely would be, they moved the goalpost from October 1st to November 1st, and they may do that again. We don't know. We don't-
Probably a lot of it hinges on what the threshold for vaccination, how that changes, right? Like,
Quinn thanked us for the clarification.
Great.
Okay, anything else for virtual
Nothing
comments?
else there now.
Okay, Mr. Molnar, any other comments?
This is number 2, right?
Yep, you got 2 more.
So there's I feel like there's this undertone in these questions that everyone expects you to lift masks in school if we hit the 80%. But you just kind of said that this means that the state is no longer requiring the mandate. And then obviously, like, there is the Cohasset Public Health who can also, say that we need to have it, and if there are so many people gathered together, whatever rules there are. But there is a question there that do you intend to lift the mask mandate in the schools if given permission by the state and the Board of Health of Cohasset, which are the two that right now that I think could block it?
In the schools, it would be the schools in which, or the schools or buildings, we're not clear yet, that have reached that 80% level.
Yes.
So we know that.
So do you intend
to? The
to?
buildings, that would be an impossibility.
You're asking us to.
you're asking what our vote would be?
Yeah, we don't know that.
I think that all of these questions seem to be
would
under
likely-
that assumption. And so I just wanted to question that assumption. Like, is that accurate? Or
I think it would be an agenda item on a meeting thereabouts, and it would be subject to discussion. We'd get data from the Board of Health, we'd get data from Dr. Sullivan, we'd get data from teachers on impact to students and scheduling, and we'd weigh all of those factors and deliberate in a public forum.
And it would be pending bargaining obligations, correct? Like, we can't, would that affect our?
There are bargaining elements too.
Right.
Yep. So yeah, there's no way to answer that question yet. It's something we would have to put on our agenda and have a public discussion.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense to me. I just wanted to clarify because it does feel like all these questions were under that assumption. So being the only one in the room.
Yes.
And I had to use my second.
Yeah. One left. Make it count.
Maybe I can buy an extra. Is that what one get a free one?
No.
Market for these. Sell your comment.
Jenna Cunningham says, the point is, why should I believe that vaccinating my child gets them out of a mask?
Well, right now, the only reason to believe that is that Bessie has stated that if a building hits 80%, so there's a lot of conjecture there because her child may not be in a building that's ever going to hit 80%. So there's no reason to believe until that's changed. That child, until that's changed, will have an opportunity on that. But right now, all you can hold on to is that if I'm able to, as the superintendent, based on the data that's coming to me through The attestations and MIS to be able to attest that we're 80% of a particular building, if I'm allowed to separate the buildings, and if your child's in that building, then, and the Board of Health and School Committee determine that the lifting of the masks, which is available to us if we do hit those, scenarios, it is appropriate for vaccinated individuals, and your child is a vaccinated individual, your child will be able to use a mask. That's all we know, and outside of that, it will be total conjecture. We sometimes don't know what the rules will be in 2 weeks, never mind what they're going to be down the line. So it's a lot of conjecture. I understand the reason for the question, but we really can only deal with what we know.
We have two more. I need please to ask for these two people asking questions to put their addresses in here. I apologize if you've already asked one and already put it in.
Throw a name out there, Ms. Caleri.
No, it's fine.
Give me a name, I'll tell you if I have an address.
Oh, Diane O'Leary, okay.
Yeah, we've got it.
16 Woodway, Cohasset. I have a comment relating to outdoor play at the elementary schools. One leftover policy was that classes at recess couldn't mix and were instead segregated into assigned locations on the playground, blacktop field playground. At Osgood, this only seems to have stopped this past week upon my direct outreach asking the principal why this COVID practice was continuing. This was concerning, and I hope we keep a critical eye toward lingering policies, such as the increased restrictions on allowable snack items, that though once grounded in COVID safety concerns, no longer make sense.
So just to speak to that, there is no policy regarding that. There never was. This was a kindergarten issue. Remember, kindergarten started a little later. That was, I didn't even know it was happening. It was, if there was something happening in that regard, and I can't even speak to the extent it was, but I do believe there was something happening that was dividing kids. It's been changed, and I apologize, for that. There is no, just to be clear, there is no policy on that. And then the snack is really nothing to do with COVID. It's just something that we've determined was a productive and safe policy for kids, and it goes beyond, I don't know if you want to comment on that.
Well, allergens and things like that, so it just, a lot of the things that happened during COVID have allowed us to think differently about how we do things,
Right.
and that was one of them, so.
It's not a COVID policy. That's something we've
The
determined
nurses,
is.
the nurses just felt like it was a safer process for students.
Thank you.
But I appreciate that comment.
Yeah.
She's not wrong. There was something happening that was just.
Thank you. Courtney Ness, 210 Lambert Lane. As much as we are all looking for a solution, I am looking for a safe solution. Less than 100 African Americans and less than 100 Asians were evaluated in the 12 to 15-year-old trial. There are 4,888 reported adverse events for doses 1 and 2. 113 were categorized as severe in the 12 to 15-year-old population. The placebo arm was 98.5% effective. As parents, we deserve less pressure to vaccinate our children. If the safety is number one for this community, then we need to all protect our children. So this is, for me, this is a challenge because I feel like it is a difficult thing for us to be reading vaccination information into public comment that we don't know. I mean, I'm not questioning the validity of these statistics. I just feel like we as a committee should probably talk about this. It's like a very relevant point right now.
Although it's not really at issue right now, because we're not debating and have on our agenda any vaccination protocol. The only vaccination protocol we have on our agenda is not on our agenda. It's given to us by the state, 80%. So that is what it is. I mean, you can agree with those facts, disagree with them, love vaccines, hate them. Doesn't matter. It's the 80% test given to us by the state. So I appreciate the thoughtfulness there and understand that there's, people want to make their own risk views on vaccinations, especially children. But what we have in front of us as a school committee is an 80% threshold. And there's nothing we can do to change that.
And nothing the school committee is doing right now is putting any pressure on anyone to vaccinate children.
Molly Urquhart, 203 Fair Oaks Lane. I apologize if this was addressed earlier, but is there a plan in place to offer testing to students that develop mild symptoms in school? I realize it cannot happen immediately, but it would minimize time students need to be home, especially as they might not be able to access testing immediately as winter comes and we see increase in mild viruses. If already addressed, do not feel the need to read. It was not already.
Well, it was.
Well,
The answer is no.
right.
At this point, I don't want to sugarcoat it. No, we don't have any plan to test mildly symptomatic kids. What we're asking is that they stay out of school and keep all the kids safe. We don't have plans for that right now. It doesn't mean we wouldn't look at it down the road, but right now we're not doing that. And I respect the point, but the answer is no.
I guess as a follow-up from me as a mom, there have been times that I'm sure all of us have sent our asymptomatic children to school to have a great day. And later in the day, they're feeling crummy and have some symptoms. So I feel like, yes, we want everyone to do their best to keep sick kids home and kids who are exhibiting symptoms in the morning. And unfortunately, those symptoms don't always show themselves before school starts, So I just feel like that's something to keep in mind. Like there's the group of kids who maybe have sniffles and are like, shh, take an ibuprofen and go to school, which we shouldn't be doing, but does happen. And then there's the kids who were not showing any sign of being sick and then are not doing great later in the day. I just think it's like, it's not a clean cut line. And we all know that because we all have kids.
But it also brings it and there are staffing issues. That's why we need help.
Yeah.
To do that. We're a very small district. The kids are going to get sick. Kids are going to get colds. If we're going to run around and make sure, and I understand the rationale behind it, but if we're going to make sure that all the kids who aren't feeling well at any point are getting a COVID test, that's a significant drain on our resources. We have very short resources to do that. We have to pair with someone who's going to help us do that. So if that's the decision we want to do, it's going to involve a lot.
It is hard to get a COVID test for a kid that doesn't feel well right now. Like I say that as a mom who's had a kid sent home already and another kid that I had to keep home.
Do you want that to be the school's responsibility?
No, that's not what I'm saying. But I feel like we as a community should figure out if like I was gonna call our state senator and our state rep to be like, do something, right? Like we have to do something. Like it can't be this hard. I couldn't get a test.
Yeah.
So
anyway.
The Walgreens has the BizNax, the BNax tests. So
those are not PCR tests, are they?
Does it have
rapid tests?
Yeah. Are those acceptable?
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, wait a minute. They are accessible. Are they easy to come by?
Yeah, I have them. I've taken them. I think I should send them.
They're more difficult to come by?
Acceptable.
Are they acceptable?
Oh, yes.
Oh.
So yeah,
Harper will see.
I know they have them at Walgreens. They had them at Walgreens. Maybe they've gotten a local shipment
I
that come
thought it
in.
had to be a PCR test. Okay, no, that's just to get into Canada.
It is. Like I called the pediatrician the other day and they were much tighter with the COVID test. I was told to hydrate and have my kid rest, which is very sound advice.
Yeah, it's time to go to work.
But a few months ago, they would have been like, come in for testing. So it's definitely, there is a shift.
Yeah. Courtney Ness did provide a link to the trial and thank you.
I'm sure.
Yes,
Exactly.
yes. As am I. I just feel like with so much stuff going on right now. So, okay, so.
All right.
Anything else?
I feel like we're hitting some three limits too. So.
This is clear. Do you have anything to comment about or discuss based on the presentation Dr. Sullivan just gave?
No, thank you very much for the presentation. I feel really very grateful that we are quarantine close contact proofing our schools. I love it. Thank you.
Mr. Dial.
One just quick question. It seems like from the opening day and on forward and from my own kids' reactions, that the school days have still been proceeding okay. Kids were able to socialize, educate. Teachers, just wanted to get from both of you your reactions to the ability for teachers to educate and kids to learn and socialize in a distanced and masked environment.
Yeah, I'd say Barbara probably can help with this as well. Maybe the three of us. I mean, I'd just say that, well, I want to make sure I first acknowledge that it's not a perfect scenario, that this is hard. It's a very stressful time. It's hard on a lot of families and not certainly ideal for the students. And I also will preface what I'm about to say has some subjectivity in it, but I do see the schools a lot and in the schools a lot. And I'm seeing happy kids, this is my point, who are actively engaging with their teachers and each other. And I know we just did teacher meetings with anybody who wanted to come in, and it was clearly, although not ideal, less stressful than last year, and people were feeling better about the way things were moving in the buildings. I feel good about the fact that we've been able to keep our kids in school. We've been able to provide them with high quality in-person instruction. We're finding ways to get them together to socialize more. We're using outdoor spaces better than we ever have. Just some lifting of some of that restriction around the comment, which I feel badly about this, aside, the kids are interacting at recess. You know, there's a lot more, I guess you'd call it normal energy in the schools than what I'm used to. And it's palpable. Are we there yet? No, we're not. I mean, look at us. We're all sitting here wearing masks, right? We're not there, but it feels better to me, and I'm happy with that right now. Because I think we want to be out of the pandemic, and we're just not. So I think we have to be mindful of it and do what we can. And, that's my answer.
Yeah, and I would say the same. I think that, one of the things that teachers are saying, they said, when will we be able to bring our kids back to that closer piece? And, when we talked about it, we said, well, we want to keep our kids in school. So right now, we have to live with this. And all the teachers have said, I just want to keep the kids in school. I don't want kids out of school. That's their goal too. So they are doing whatever they can to make it feel as normal as possible within the parameters we have. And I would say they're happy, teachers are happy. And again, it's not perfect. And we know that everybody's stressed about it. But I think compared to last year, I agree with you, it's better. And kids are happy and they just want to be in school. They really, really do. So they're willing to do this.
Yep.
So.
And I would say, as I go around, it does have a very different feel from last year. That, while it is still a challenge, while teachers are monitoring really closely progress kids are making in all of the realms that are involved in education, students are very, very happy. Students are themselves. And I think that's the important piece, is students are very much themselves. They're themselves as learners, but they're themselves as engaged learners. I know I walk into classrooms and, kids ask me questions, kids show me things that they're doing. Kids involve me in, the kind of some of the surveys that they're doing and things like that. And they tell me about the things that they are doing. And they're clearly so actively involved in their learning that it feels very, very much more like 2 years ago, than last year. And that's a really good feeling. And it's really good to feel that energy from the kids and from the teachers, even though we are continuing this, even though we're still being, very cognizant of the social emotional learning, the academic learning, all of those things. It's just very, very nice to be out and about and feel like things are really moving forward.
Thank you. And I guess I'll say, nobody likes this, but I really, really like this page where we have very few infections. And I really like that we've had no quarantines from in-school activity, that we're keeping kids in school. So kudos to, and I also want to just also appreciate everything, the extra mile that the staff and everyone is doing, bringing kids lunches in the cafeteria. Those are things that kind of go unsung, and I know it's hard work. So thank you for everyone.
Just what Mr. Dow's referring to is really at Osgood having table service, so we're not mixing kids in lunch lines. I mean, we're being careful of it. And that takes a lot of work, so I appreciate you acknowledging that.
Thank you, Mr. Dowd. Mr. Tierney?
I think Lance has spoke for, I want to echo what he just said. And to you, Mr. Zerwin, your staff and the operations and the janitors and the teachers and, and I think Ashley said it best, the word is grateful. I'm just grateful to have my kids in school. Please, and Dr. Sullivan, thank you for, just knowing that that is the objective of this. As much as we'd love to open everything up, I think that we have a general consensus that we want to keep our kids safe. I'm just grateful for all of you.
Thank you, Mr. Tierney. Ms. St.
I guess everyone said a lot of thanks, and I agree with all of the things. I do also want to say to families who are listening, continue to advocate for your child and get what they need. My second grader wasn't drinking water during the day, not because there weren't opportunities, but because she didn't feel comfortable with it. So I reached out to her teacher, who was incredibly responsive, and now treats her the best when it comes to water.
Excellent.
So I was like, oh, you're getting reminders to drink water? So probably she's now the most hydrated member of our family. But I just think that, we each of us who has children in Cohasset schools has a direct contact to the classroom, and that is our child's teacher, our children's teachers. Reach out to them. Who am I looking at here? Communicate and of course reach out to us. But I think on a day-to-day basis, it's just so nice that we each have, like I said, a direct contact to our classroom, someone who can make a difference immediately in our child's life and our child's comfort level, and in their ability to be a learner and a student and a community member. And if that means, a sip of water or taking a little walk out in the hallway or whatever it is, use that resource and make sure that you are helping your kid have the best day by doing that.
I think teachers really, really want parents to connect with them if there's any issue at all, because that's the first person to go to, because they're there experiencing what's happening in the classroom. So I agree.
So thank you, Ms. St. I do, along the lines of what Ms. St. said, there are other perspectives on things. And I think that everyone here, because we're so intimately involved with the operations and see how things are going, I think we're all happy, but we're speaking from a relative perspective. And, comparing it to what, we're no longer taking things for granted that we may have taken for granted in 2018 or 2019. And so just seeing some of that passion and joy return to the buildings is I think what's driving these comments. That said, it's really healthy to have these challenging conversations, because it's that pressure, when applied appropriately, that will, I think, hasten the return to normal as soon as practical. And what I mean by that is we don't want to just sort of normalize distancing and masking and all of this stuff. We have to sort of get used to it for the time being while these rules are in place. The rules are the rules, and we're following them. Much of it is just dictated, as Mr. Dial pointed out a number of times, by the state. It has nothing to do with what we want or what we don't want. But we do want to return to a completely normal situation when we can. So it's important to point that out. And I just don't want anyone sitting at home thinking, oh, well, it's just going around in a circle, congratulating themselves and saying how great everything is. No, but we understand that there are still, and I think Dr. Scollins she I think expressly stated earlier, it's not perfect. So I do just want to reiterate that and sort of, just I think, just acknowledge the merit of that perspective. The other thing is, along the lines of challenging the sort of status quo, not to go back, but I am going to just revisit the gymnasium use for a minute, because I left that conversation in a very bad place, and and it's just representative of a lot of the discussions we've had here at this committee. I really, really dislike the, us versus them, or this adversarial relationship that sometimes developed. And I think that in this particular circumstance, I think I was the one that sort of sparked the negativity at the end of that discussion inadvertently. as I pointed out that we hadn't had too much notice about this issue, in the first place, I think that was taken, as a sort of attack, and it wasn't meant to be an attack. I was just pointing out that we really haven't had a lot of time to even think about this, and as a group, we can't talk about things unless it's in public. So, there may be a solution to any type of problem, including the gymnasium usage, that won't conflict with these seemingly opposing perspectives or positions. But, I just want to, I'm sure that the Andrews aren't watching. I wouldn't be if I just sat through an hour of the meeting if I were them. But I did want to state, because I am going to email them separately, but I want to publicly state that I really dislike it when there's an us versus them mentality here. I want to just really impress upon everyone that we are absolutely doing the best we can to make sure that the children of our district have the best overall experience academically, athletically, social, emotionally. I mean, there's so much time that goes into this to making sure that we try and take every perspective into account. And I think this committee has been extremely open to community input and perspectives. And so I just really want to impress upon everyone that we're not against you, ever. We're with you. And if it's for the kids, then we're for it. But it has to make sense, and it can't interfere with the operations of the district. So I know, I left out of the conversation in a really bad place. It's been distracting me. So I just wanted to say that, and I'm going to email the Andrews separately. So, and that goes for any topic, including masking or vaccination or any of this, So we welcome this challenging discourse, but we're not against you. There's a lot of different considerations to the role. So thank you for that very informative presentation, Dr. Sullivan. And obviously, it sounds like we're going to have some decisions to make at the next meeting.
Chairman Cohen, do we need to, given our last committee action on this, I think expires today, do we need a motion to bring down our policies to November 3rd, which is our next meeting after November 1st?
Well, maybe, but aren't we in compliance with DESI guidelines now?
We are, but not by action of the school committee.
I'm sorry, Mr. Dow.
So we voted.
So I guess I'll do it this way. I'll make a motion that we, as a school committee, bring down and extend our October 6th, whatever the September last meeting.
I see.
The decision that we made that expires today, and extend that to November 3rd, which will be the first meeting after November 1st, when the DESI guidance changes.
Well, it may be October 20th, because that's going to be the first meeting, the last meeting before.
Right, but we can't do anything before. So I guess I'm going to say in my motion, November 3rd, because that would be when we'd have the most up-to-date data, when something could make it, we'll lose 2 days, I guess, but we'd have the most up-to-date community data that we could have for that discussion.
Okay, so.
I second that.
One second. Mrs. St. Ange seconds it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Nay. So the motion clearly passes. So the current policy is extended to November 3rd. And I suppose we can have another discussion and make another decision on October 20th. Okay. So
or November 3rd.
Or November 3rd. I'm saying,
so many options, guys.
I'm just as a right. So we're gonna have we're gonna have to submit that by October 15th. Our attestation in terms of where we are vaccination rates.
The only thing I know not everyone in the town of Grass is watching. I do think someone made the point that a lot of folks feel that come November 1st, if we're 80% tested, that the kids not wearing masks in school.
Mm-hmm.
And I just don't want to set up a situation where folks can come to school on November 1st. So it's going to require some communication. It's also going to it's going to spark some frustration because we have to attest by October 15th. And I think the reason that they're doing that is that they want to make sure that communities can gather the data before a test by the 15th. The state needs to get back to us and tell us if it's accepted, and then they know that folks have to have school committee meetings.
Yep.
And that's why they're giving us the window from the 15th to the 1st. And I have to even, in full disclosure, I think it's through the 1st. I think it might be the 2nd, But I need to clarify that. I think a lot of people are just saying it's the first. So I'm just throwing it out there as a thought for us down the road that it could potentially be a tripping factor.
Well, like I said, I mean, there's been a motion, been passed, right? So that's where we stand. And, there's another meeting between now and then, and maybe there's another motion that considers something else and overrides this one. Maybe there isn't.
Certainly you'll know by October 20th what I'm attested to. Because
Yes, right. That's
well, I guess I want to test anything if it's not 80%.
That's my point. We'll know that, and we'll know that Jesse has said November 1st. What we might not know, if they don't clarify it by then, is whether or not a school shares a building.
I hope they will, but I agree with you.
It's a possibility. So we won't know whether a building is a school or a school is a school, even if it shares a building. So that might be one thing we won't know.
Just to underlie that, though, the reason for the 3rd as opposed to the 20th is because if we are going to make a decision to say change our mask protocol, that would not go into effect until the 1st. And so ideally, if we're going to have a decision that's going to impact the school on the 1st, we would have data up to that date. Because what if on the 20th we say, okay, yep, let's rescind masks, and then things fall to pieces in the ensuing 2 weeks. So it gives us time between when the eligibility is there and gives us current data to make a decision right at or around the effective date.
I hear you. I just disagree with you.
And that is allowed.
Another thing just to consider is that because it was tested on October 15th, I may have to attest again. I don't know what the process is. We're going to be able to attest after the 15th. So in other words, the 15th, wherever we are with the data is what I'm testing. If I can't test. That period between the 15th and whenever we decide, I don't know what the process would be to reattest. I'm gathering that there will be some, because as schools do become 80%, if that continues, I just don't know that.
You shouldn't go down though, right?
What's that?
Your vaccination rate shouldn't really go down.
It won't go down, but what if we're not at the 80%?
Oh, then there's a future opportunity.
Right,
Yeah.
I need to be able to attest to it. I don't know the
At
process.
some point, yeah.
A rolling attestation.
It seems.
I know, but I don't even want to confuse everyone.
I know. Can we?
We already
can
talked
we
about the one thing that
actually-
is.
Yeah, this is, we don't even know, so can we go to the next thing? I'm
Please.
sorry to be the person to say
No,
it. But I'm taking charge now, Craig. What's going on? We don't know. Let's keep going.
School committee comments and communication. There hasn't been many development in the school facility committee. We're still in the process. So we have another meeting at the end of the month. And I'll provide an update at the another meeting. So reports from subcommittees, just clear.
Policy subcommittee put together a phenomenal wellness policy with a lot of input from our phenomenal wellness committee.
Exactly.
And we're very excited about it. And we will have that to review at our next school committee meeting.
We will, because then I took it back to our health, the person from the Department of Ed, who's our wellness coach. And she said, it's awesome, but there are some pieces that we have to put back in because we thought we were being efficient in taking them out. And she said, actually, they have to be back in there.
Yeah.
Because there's procedures and policy, yes. So it'll all be there, but yes, it'll be ready to go. The language is gonna stay the same. We're just gonna put those other pieces back in that are already there.
Got it.
Okay?
And we also met as a communication subcommittee to discuss the website. And I went back to, I'm working on that.
Okay.
Sort of offline, and then we'll reconvene and continue to make progress.
Thank you, Mr. Clear. Mr. Dodd.
I don't believe we have any reports from the capital committee. We've done
well,
ensuing session.
There is some good news too. We're going to be inviting a member. We're going to be doing a walkthrough soon with Chairman Nee.
Vice Chairman, he's a member of the school facility.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Don't be sorry.
Help me out. We're looking to bring on one of the school facilities committee members to do a walkthrough, which I think is grateful. And to bring up the committee, I think they've made a good decision to do two subcommittees. One is for the future and one is for what we're dealing with now, which I think is great.
Yep.
My turn to.
Yeah, I
Well,
think
it's
that's,
Mr. Giles, but you're sort of.
Yeah, but
I defer. You're on the same committee. That was my left.
You yield his time.
I yielded my time to Mr. Kearney.
I'm waiting for that facility member to say that date's okay. I can make that date.
Yep. So,
So you got the floor, Mr. Kieran.
great, because I had a busy week. And I'll start with the open house. Middle school, high school. First was the high school. Impressive with some of the teachers. Impressive with the custodian skills. Notice there's still some water stations that haven't been done, that I thought were done. So there are 2 or 3 water fountains. I thought they were all done, apparently they're not.
They're being done. They're gonna be done.
Okay. Some of the other things that I thought were a little odd was the teachers were making mention to the fact, or one teacher did, that the telephone systems don't work. They can't leave messages for teachers. So in other words, one of them had said that, I think I could quote him, that
Who's they, parents?
the teacher had said that they were unable, they have the same, they don't even have a voicemail. So you can't call the teacher.
I don't believe that's accurate, but I would say that individual teacher, I don't mention who it is, but they should help desk and immediately that should be fixed. But
Okay.
we can look into that.
Please do, because I had a unfortunate situation where I didn't know where Jack was. And I was freaking out. He was actually at a cross-country meet. I went to pick him up. Nobody told me. So I felt like I couldn't get into school. I couldn't call him, but I just felt, but I did find him. Thank God he was on the other side. Just to bring that point up, I think maybe we can talk about that as in the facilities, that making sure all the phone systems do work, because that is a problem. And I'd like to call my teacher and not have him say.
I haven't heard that at all, so that, we will look into that. In front offices are always a great place to call.
Yeah, okay. So the other thing was like, we couldn't really, and this is a PA system that you really can't hear. So it was kind of like.
The announcements?
The announcements, just kind of
Was
like.
that the middle high school? Or
Both, I would say. I thought middle school was a little bit off.
Interesting. So we were adjusting some of our volumes in both places because they're 2 separate PAs.
Okay.
Working off of one. So that's interesting. That might be some growing pains from the beginning of the year.
Right.
But that's good to go too. I'll check on that.
And we also, and this isn't something that I'm saying myself, this is something that I got some feedback from some of the parents, and this is high school, middle school, felt like an hour was not enough. We didn't really get to meet our teachers, felt rushed in and rushed out. This is the only chance that parents get to spend with their teacher. It's an hour a year. And we'll talk about that in bargaining issues where it should have parent-teacher conferences. As a matter of fact, we had one teacher advocating for it, that we should have parent-teachers. And it's not something that we don't have in the school system that we should probably have. And that we talked about.
Can I just say that I agree with you, but I also think that you can call a teacher at any point.
Well, you can't call them, you can only email.
Not accurate.
But that's what
That
this
person is
teacher
reporting that, but that is not necessarily accurate.
Okay, but that's what
email.
he told all the teachers, that he doesn't answer the phone and can only be reached by
So
email.
that's something individual, but
I get it, but what I'm trying to say is I like to talk to people. I'm not a big emailer because
No, I hear
I'd
you.
rather.
My point was,
No, if you want to call me, just,
but I guess
you know that.
Can I speak as a teacher for a second?
Yeah.
I would use my email in that instance as a voicemail, as a request for a phone call, because during the day, you're with
Right,
children.
right,
You cannot
okay.
pick up the phone. You're
Right.
doing your job.
I get it.
Right.
So
Which
you can
is not
email them and say,
escapable.
please call
Say, hey, can we set up a phone call sometime after 2 on Thursday? That's best for me. And then they will say, would you like a Zoom or a phone call? Because that's what people do now.
Okay.
And then you'll say, just a phone call, thanks, I'm not a computer guy.
Right.
And then they'll do it.
Right, that's
And
what I'm
it'll be
looking
great.
for.
And that'll be great.
but my point is
Problem
that
solved.
any teacher will do that for you, and
Absolutely.
if you're out there, so that is, don't.
I've done it already this year.
Yeah.
Just because there's no formal parent-teacher conference time, you always can talk to your teacher.
And I do agree with the importance of being able to talk.
Yeah, it's just, like I said, and I know we can clear that up.
Yeah, absolutely.
The other thing is the phones and the water stations. So that went well. I want to say today was, I want to give John Mills a compliment because the school for the first time had a meet today. And I was able to go to it. It was the first middle school cross-country meet
It's Weymouth.
against Weymouth, in Weymouth. And it was Randolph was there as well. And that was just a great thing to see. So hats off to John. The other thing is, I just want everybody to know, and Susan, I don't know how we sign up for it, but the school committee conferences are coming up in November down at the Cape. And full disclosure, my business is inside the hotel that's having it. And that's the.
File that with the town hall.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't say anything, you guys can't work out at the club, nothing like that. But the point is this is, Commissioner Riley will be there. Commissioner Riley is the keynote speaker. And this is a good chance for all us to see not only other committee members to get some of their other inputs, and there's some great people that you'll meet, but they have these certain, certain groups of how to negotiate with teachers' contractors, all these good things that need to be done. So if you guys would like to join me, I'll be down there for this weekend. And I know Dr. Sullivan, you talked about some interest, and it's November 3rd, I
That's
believe.
the MASC mask.
Yeah,
conference?
yeah.
I would like to.
So I just suggest if you guys can get out for one day, it's really a good opportunity to see office, furniture and different things around. So I've done it for the last 3 years and I found it to be very helpful. So I just wanted to mention that, and if for the record, sign me up. I know that's maybe Jennifer.
Do we
does
do
it?
that through you? Don't we just do that?
No,
I can certainly take that on, but.
So Jen and I can just find Jennifer.
Well, I think Jen. I think
Jennifer does, but you have to approve, I don't know how the funds
Oh,
get
it's like
paid.
a PO.
Right, you have to pay for it.
Yeah.
We'll take care of that. Just whoever wants to go.
Right, that's all I'm saying.
That's perfect. I want to work out.
I'll do it, but I want to use the gym.
All right, so that's that, Commissioner Riley. I would hope everybody would go to that. The biggest thing I gotta tell you, the most exciting thing I can say is the wellness committee. And we are just doing so well in that committee, and we're now asking parents to be a part of that community.
So if anyone's out there, we got a couple of parents that have volunteered so far, but we're collecting names.
No, I have some very excited friends.
So we'd like to have someone from, I didn't mean to cut you off, I'm sorry.
No.
But if we
please.
could get a parent from each school, that would be wonderful. If not, we have some wonderful people that have already put their names in, so.
Yeah, and we've been fortunate enough to have a grant given to us from the state that we're on our third, I think, second year. And one of our action points is to make food educate for the kids after school. And that's something that's our number one priority for a goal, and can't be more thrilled.
All kids, right? Last time you said athletes, and I thought,
No,
lesbians and
Yeah.
other children who are
Yeah, no,
high
it's
school.
all
I just-
So that, right,
Yeah.
exactly. And we are also getting student voice. So Principal Mills and Principal Scott are asking for 2 representatives from middle school and 2 representatives from the high school students to be on the wellness committee also. So we're gonna get that, voice, student voice.
That's
yeah.
awesome. I love that.
So we're excited, right?
Yeah,
And then we're gonna
yeah.
pick another couple of goals and then we'll work on those. So
Absolutely.
we have a meeting in November, our next meeting. So.
Good job, guys.
All right, Mr. Kearney, that was, thank you for that.
Yeah, thanks.
That
Glad
got me.
you enjoyed it. You can laugh all
You
you
got me
want.
good. Listen, you got me. I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to tell you. It was good.
Not good for you.
No, what's that?
No, it's my turn.
I'm sorry.
Same
No,
one.
no, I have nothing to report.
Okay. Well, that moves us into our next agenda.
Well, didn't you guys have an open house?
Excuse me?
We
Did I
talked
hear
about it.
Oh, last week?
Yes, sir.
Oh, sorry.
You might have
It was-
remembered in
it
the
was
minutes that you
earlier
just
than-
previewed
it
that
was,
it
Oh,
was
yeah.
mentioned in there.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
2 weeks earlier.
The sun was there helping me.
Yeah.
All right, approval of minutes. We do have some minutes to approve. We have minutes from the Wednesday, September 22nd, 2021 meeting. It's included in your packet. Everyone had an opportunity to review that? Okay, so is there a motion, if there are no corrections or revisions or proposed additions, then is there a motion to approve?
I thought we were motioning to adjourn, I'm sorry. apologize.
Why are you concerned that we're doing?
Well, I have a gift. I want to be sure.
Oh, yeah. Don't worry, don't worry.
It's not on the agenda, so.
You are a gift, Dr. Sullivan.
I apologize.
So is there a motion to approve the
So
meeting
moved.
minutes 9/22/21? Okay, motion made by Mr. Kearney, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Cleary, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion clearly passes, unanimously passes, minutes are approved.
An exciting note about these minutes, these will be submitted to William Elwell's Scout troop and will allow him to move forward in the Eagle Scout process.
Hey. I was able to put his presentation in the newsletter, and if you saw that. That's awesome.
I'm still so impressed by that. My husband went out and walked the path because I shared the presentation with him. We're jazzed.
It'd be fun to watch.
Yeah.
High traffic police.
Okay, next, I think that does it for the meeting minutes, correct?
For this time, yep.
Okay, so moving on, there is a topic that was in the.
I'm sorry, I apologize again, but I'm
Dr.
not
Sullivan will articulate that topic.
forward. Yes, we have a gift that was offered to us, not enough notice to put on the agenda, but I'll present it to you today. I'll read the letter. This is from Stephanie Moriarty, who is our musical director, department chair, visual performing arts at Monroe High School. And she says, Superintendent Sullivan and members of the school committee, please accept the generous donation from Awesome Blossom made by owner Mary Beth Lynch. The donation is given to the music and art programs at Cohasset Middle and High School. This year, the funds will support several enrichment efforts, including the all-school musical and growth of our after-school ensemble programs. We are honored to be the recipients of these funds and value the recognition of a valued local business. Very best, Stephanie Moriarty, and the amount is for $2,000 made out to Cohasset.
That's so nice.
That is awesome, it's wonderful. Is there a motion to accept the gift?
So moved.
Second. Motion made by Mr. Dial, seconded by Mr. Kearney. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
All opposed, nay. I'm voting nay, I just.
Careful. An example of what to say?
Motion unanimously passes, and the gift is accepted. Dr. Sullivan,
Oh,
thank
nice.
you very much. That wonderful business that supports the schools. There is no reason for executive session that I know of. So, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion made by Ms. Cleary, is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Dial. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
All opposed, that was any.
Aye. No, what? Sorry. I'm typing and I'm behind and I was saying aye from before.
All right,
we're staying in the meeting.
The first time we voted that unanimously passed, so I'll take that.
Yeah, I said aye still. I never said anything else.
You did. You just double voted.
I'm sorry. Sorry, I'm typing.
Maybe you can.
All right.
Thank you.